This meeting to order, the Parks and Recreation Commission, Thursday, May 5th, 2022. And our first order of business is approval of our minutes of April 7th.
I'll move to approve the minutes. And there was some rather very short-term editing going on into the minutes on edits that I provided to Scott. We were still working on this at 4 o'clock this afternoon. I have verified that the edits that I provided are in the packet. If anybody wants to review the packet minutes. Especially the edits were in, there was minor edits in various places, but especially the 5B. A lot of the edits I found are required. I spoke with our city attorney, Valerie Zisman, yesterday on various questions and discussions and things, and part of it that I was picking up was the minutes are required to capture all of the moves and seconds and votes and roll call votes and all of that, and we missed some things. And in the draft minutes, some of these were not in there, so they are in there now.
Yeah, I took a look and saw that it did reflect the activity from last month. And we had a second, correct? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Well, I have a question, or actually a comment regarding the minutes. I want it to be noted, if possible, that my objection to 5B was that there was no financial data provided to us. And I'm not sure I see that anywhere in here unless I overlooked it. I'm not sure. But I want to be sure that was my objection to the whole process, is that we had no financial data.
I'm happy to accept that as a second, or as a friendly amendment. Some other opinions on that have been, not my opinion, but to not go into a lot of the discussion. I'm happy to see points made in discussion added into the minutes. So I'm happy, again, to accept that as a friendly amendment, and then that would be added into the minutes. Is there any specific wording, or just kind of capture it from what you said there, Heidi?
Yeah, just that, I did move to table, which is true, and feeling that, this wasn't really something we should be voting on without all of the proper information. That, I guess that's what I would like in there. I just didn't feel it was responsible for us to be voting on it without the appropriate information. Thank you.
Okay.
Looks like Scott is good with that. He's
Thank
making
you.
notes.
Yes, I see Scott is making a note of that. So with a friendly amendment, we can just vote?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Patrick's additions that should be in the packet that you see on your screens, and then Heidi Reynolds had additional clarification. So all those in favor of minutes as amended?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we got our minutes taken care of. Review and approve the agenda, a motion to do that?
Public appearance.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped right over it. Do we have Annette Miller? She's here, and Scott, you have an introduction for Annette?
Certainly, and this is Annette Miller. She is the consultant who's working on the Teen Center study. And if you recall, last month Wade gave us a bit of an update on the Teen Center survey. Annette did request to be on the agenda tonight, if anything else, so that the park commissioners can see who she is and those kinds of things, because she will be coming back in June with the final report. So, and I know Annette did send me update information late this afternoon. I wasn't able to get it into the packet, but if she wanted to share it, I can stop my share and then Annette can share it if that's what she'd like.
Sure, thank you, Scott. I do have what I call an April update report. I can share it on the screen, and I'm happy to, Scott, if you can just share it to the commission after the fact, that'll be great. You can have it in your file. I wanted to just be in front of you because I know that we have Wade transitioning, and so before he leaves, I thought we could kind of do a a dual presenting. He can fill in any gaps as need be that you might want to. Real quick, I will share my screen here, so hopefully you can see this. So just a quick refresher. This started in September that Equity by Design got the contract. We mapped out 3 phases. Stage 1, figuring out like sort of the lay of the land and letting people know that this teen center engagement study was going to happen. And then we had an open house in actually in December. Stage 2 was launching a survey and then also doing youth focused engagement. So we did focus groups, put out the survey, and then now we're in what is called stage 3, which is we want to do a community workshop, which is a culmination of all of the outreach that's been done, which I'll get into in more detail in a moment. And then we will be presenting a final report. We'd like to present it to you before we go to the council for final approval. So just wanted to get in early so that if there's anything that's arising for you, we can know that now, right? And not as we're coming up on the end. So you're aware that there are 8 interns that were hired that represent Madison, Verona, and the Oregon school districts. We were really excited to have them. This has really been centered with them, doing a lot of the heavy lifting, if you will, in terms of giving guidance around how we should think about this project. So it's been really exciting because typically Equity by Design, is working with adults. So this was really nice to work with these teens. We had 2 surveys that launched. One that was targeted towards youth, ages 11 to 19, and then we also had a community survey for ages 19 plus. The youth survey, we told the youth that we had a goal of getting 200 surveys. They actually exceeded the goal, and we received 214 surveys. So they really went out there and hustled in terms of getting these responses. And then the community survey had been pushed by Equity by Design, by Fact TV, by Wade, and through his networks. And then we also had a contact sheet that if people wanted to learn about the community center or wanted to hear about the teen center, we would send information to them. We received 176 responses through that survey. So we have, a nice round number of data that we'll be able to use to hear and learn and understand not only what does the broader community think, but again, what do the youth think? And quite frankly, I think if we're going to build a teen center, we should build it for the teens so that they'll use it and that it really is designed to do what we hope, especially if we're going to make this important investment in the Fitchburg community. The teen focus groups, we did these focus groups on April 18th. The teens planned, designed, and hosted the event. They did an amazing job. If any of you looked at the open house and the teens through the open house, they were pretty silent and very nervous and scared and shy. And at the focus groups, it's just such a huge change. They were very all in, engaging with the youth who showed up, and just really did a fantastic job of using their voice. So just seeing them from December being quiet and shy, and then now really taking charge and feeling a lot of comfort in terms of moving this teen center engagement along has been great to see. Their goal was to get 40 teens. And one of the things that the teens learned is that, it seems like it's easy to get people to follow you and accept your invitation when you ask them to do things that you believe in. But they learned, like the rest of us have learned, is just because people know you, like you, when you try to get them to an event to do something, that's a whole different story. So their goal was to get 40 teens in the room, and they got 12 attendees in the room. So I think as an internship, they've been learning a lot. They're getting real world experience about what it's like to do engagement. The teens, a couple of teens were still really motivated. And so 3 of them did what are called solo focus groups. And so they've gone back and done some one-on-one. So we were able to pick up another 7 attendees. And then actually an adult was at the teen focus group and actually had some youth for their group, and they invited Equity by Design in to come and do a focus group with them. And so we picked up 4 attendees that way. So we bumped our numbers up to 23 focus group attendees with that process. We still have one student who's still really really committed to doing a solo focus group. So we told her to go ahead and do it, even though it wouldn't get picked up with this particular report. But she was so excited, we didn't want to say no, and especially since she's willing to do the work. There's going to be a community event over at the King James Park. And so it's going to be a neighborhood bike ride tour. Alder Joe Maldonado is spearheading that and is doing that in partnership with some bike groups. So that'll be pretty exciting. What we committed to do is to have some teens and Equity by Design there on May 17th, either at Redeemer, where we've been meeting the whole time, which we really appreciate them letting us use their space, or we'll be at the park and we'll be set up as the bikers come through to talk about the teen center. And then last but not least is the community workshop, which is scheduled for May 23rd. It's going to be held at the Redeemer City Church. And what we plan to do there is we want to present all of the data that came from the surveys, from the focus groups, and really talk about the themes that have emerged and talk about and give people kind of an idea of some possible directions on what could be housed at this teen center based on what we've learned. And so what'll happen is that the final report will then take all of this data and we'll map it into a report, and we'll talk about key findings, and we'll also make key recommendations in that final report. But the community workshop is really to make sure that we tie both the listening and the reflecting back process, because one thing that we find in engagement is that a lot of times the community's like, well, did you really listen to us? We know you got data, but what are you doing with it? So this workshop is a way to help people understand what we may do with the data by making sure that the things that they share in terms of highlights and themes, that they're being reflected in the way that they were mentioned and shared to us, and make sure that it's an apples to apples comparison. And we call that process affirmation. So we want to try to make sure that in our listening, we're really reflecting out back what we heard, and that it's in alignment with what people are saying. So that's the purpose of the community workshop. So the game plan is after the workshop, we'll take all of this data and start doing some serious writing in June to then present the report, the engagement summary report on the Teen Center. Again, we'll be sharing it with you and then also with the Common Council. So that's my report.
I have one quick question because I couldn't read it from here. The community event, is that May 17th?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks. I didn't hear that.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Oh, I see a hand up. Heidi?
Hi, I think what you're doing here is wonderful. I think especially it's a great idea to get the teens involved, to talk to other teens and find out what they really need. A question I have, so the teen interns that you recruited, it looks like there weren't any from Fitchburg. I'm just curious if there were no teens that applied for that, or if it was by design to get the teens from other communities involved. And secondly, I would just curious of the attendees at that April 18th meeting, how many were Fitchburg teens and how many were other community teens?
That's a great question. I think in terms of the teens, some of them are from Fitchburg. We just wanted to, I just say the high schools.
Oh, okay,
I'm
okay.
mentioning the high schools. I'm sorry. When
No,
I
that's
say,
okay.
yeah, so when I say Verona, I'm talking about Verona High School, Memorial High School, Oregon, and then also James C. Wright, because we had a couple of, we had two middle school interns. So, but yes, the ones for Verona are from Fitchburg. So I'm sorry
Okay.
that
And then,
wasn't.
no, that's fine. And then, so I live on Anton Drive. I live over, which I believe is one of the areas being considered for the teen center. Arguably, probably one of the communities that needs it the most. And I'm wondering how much effort has been put into getting teens involved that live around this neighborhood.
Yeah, so I think so we've had a lot of ideas, but I think trying to get them in traction, that's the purpose of this community event and being over at King James Park was to really try to make that happen.
Perfect.
Um,
And I will offer any help I can give you. I live in the New Fountains Apartments. I
mhm.
can put flyers up for you. I can talk to our management here and see if they can send out emails or whatever to to the people that live here to get them more involved if that's something you could use help with.
Well, we can always use help. So I will never say no to that. And we do actually have a flyer. So we can get that into your hands and that would be great. I think, part of this is, there's what you think you're going to be able to do with the interns and then what actually ends up happening. And we had some vision of getting out and doing door knocking. And it was really hard to make that happen because there was so much effort trying to get the surveys completed. Then they rolled into the focus group. So we didn't realize how robust the work was for the interns. So we sort of had to back off a little bit on some of the ideas that we had. So this is how we got to the community event is like sort of the where we're trying to get out into the neighborhoods. And I thought, and I'll go back and check, but we were going to try to get some information out through some of the contacts through people who live in the neighborhood to get them to post it so that it would be
Sure.
visible. Mm-hmm.
And my phone number and email address, is on the Fitchburg website here. So please feel free to reach out to me. I'll help in any way I can. And I'll certainly try to attend the event on the 23rd as well.
Okay, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Annette, for attending.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, everyone.
Okay, now we're on to review and approve our agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda with a couple changes, and that is to move up to right after this, 5D, which is the letter of support for Fitchburg Veterans Park, and 6B, which is the Eagle Scout project proposal for Swan Creek Park. The rest in the same order as is.
A second?
I'll second.
We've got Heidi is seconding. Okay.
Five D, the letter of support for Fitchburg Veterans Park, and 6B, the Eagle Scout proposal.
Okay. So we should start then with 5D. Right? Okay, so then we will go with 5D, that is the Veterans Park Planning Group. We have Tom Clowder registered to speak.
Shouldn't you take a vote first?
We didn't?
No. Sorry.
Thank you. Those in favor of the agenda as amended.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hope not. Thank you. Okay,
we need to move forward with the resolution, so then he can speak.
Okay. I got it, it's here.
So I move approval of resolution R-76-22, a letter of support for Fitchburg Veterans Park United States Army donation program application.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait a minute.
Good evening,
Wait,
folks.
wait. No, we have to have discussion before
Yeah,
the
go
vote.
ahead, Tom. We'll redo that. Go
Good
ahead.
evening, folks. Thanks for the move. I hope, sometimes it doesn't happen that way, but this will move quicker than some of the other things on your agenda. Tom Clutter, I'm a Fitchburg resident for over 30 years, and I'm here on behalf of the Veterans Park. And in your packet, you received a letter from myself and an application. And just a quick explanation, what's going on here is this. One of our veterans brought this to the committee's attention that when we were discussing possibly some military equipment for the Veterans Park, that there is a site, the U.S. Army donations site, and they do donate used equipment to cities, towns, and villages. You should know that you have to fill out this application. They want to receive a letter from the city so they know it's legit. We could have bought the equipment, you know, maybe we'd buy a tank or something. You're talking probably $15,000 or $20,000. And if it's donated to a city, they will donate it to us and we don't have to pay for it. Like I say, this came about after a lot of discussion. I did talk to the city administrator, I did talk to the city attorney, and they told me that I have to go down these routes as far as Parks Commission, the finance, and the city council, and I'm fine with that, no problem. You should also know that the Army keeps a tight lid on what they have. We can't request something, we can't ask for something because they won't give you that. What happens is you have to put in the application and then they'll tell you what they have or don't have and you go from there. It should be noted that I want to make it real clear that if we do receive something, we will come back to this body in the city council. You'll know about it so that if it's placed in the park, we're all on the same page. So everyone is on the same page. It's amazing. I can just say in closing that I've done this for about 4 years. The mayor at the time I started this project was Gonzalez. And when I picked this up, just for some of you that don't know, no one had touched that park, that Veterans Park, for like 50 years. There was a statue up there, there was a flag, and that's all that was there. And the old city hall, which was a town hall, I go back that far, that was the old town hall. This building wasn't even here. And if you haven't been there, please take a tour, go up, take a look, walk around. If you have a question, contact anyone on the committee, give us a call. But I would just really, obviously, I'm here to have you support our effort, and I hope you can support what we're doing. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions for Tom?
I have a question, just because I'm curious. Does the recipient of the donation, are they in charge of like freight and getting it to where it needs to be, or is that all part of the donation program that they get it to you?
I'm sorry, say that again louder.
Whatever equipment ends up being donated, is it part of the program that they facilitate getting it to you, or is it then your job or our job to get it to the park?
Haven't got that far. We do have someone that can't answer because I don't know. It's one of those things. When we get to that bridge, we'll cross it.
have a question.
Go ahead.
Hi, Tom. So my question is, so you don't have any idea how big this equipment is going to be, but I imagine that the friends of this park is going to be in charge of maintaining the equipment, because I don't know, maybe it requires some maintenance or, I don't know, installation, all of that, yeah.
In talking to the city attorney, I can answer a couple of those questions. If we would get like a Hummer, or you would get a tank, I'm just making this up. But Julie, if we get like I'll say that again, if it would be a Hummer or a tank or I'm gonna use the word small, chopper or something, the doors and everything would have to be sealed. Windows would be taken out. We're not sure of this, but my conversation with her, we may even fence it, but I'm a little against that, because if you went to Sauk City and you went to some of these veterans park and you see what they have, it's amazing. There's a Prairie du Sac, the other side of their city there. These veterans park, they plant this stuff, but it's not for kids to get hurt or anyone to get hurt on, and we want to go that same way. We don't want anybody to fall off anything or get hurt, and we had that discussion. I wish I could talk more on what we're looking at, but I can't. We have to wait and see.
Any other questions? Okay, so now we may vote. Those in favor of R 7622, the letter of support for Fitchburg Veterans Park. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? Okay, that has passed, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So next then we will have Alex Nelson, please come forward. And Alex is with a Boy Scout. Is this Middleton Scouts? Yep. Okay, very good. And this is, I have to find, one moment, I just want to get to this because we're skipping around. The 6B. Right, I'm just looking at. Go ahead. You just go ahead and tell us about it.
All right. So my plan for this Eagle project will be to lead a group of scouts and adult leaders to build a 8x12 wooden lean-to style garden utility shed at Swan Creek Community Park in Fitchburg to store their community garden supplies in.
Okay, and Scott, you know.
Yep, I'm
Much more about
aware of
it?
it, and
Okay.
actually, we've actually have a preliminary design for that shed. And then we actually did budget some dollars in our budget in order to pay for the materials. So Alex has been kind enough to organize his group to get it built for us.
Is Tom Gilbert still involved with? Mm-hmm. Okay, nice, okay. Anybody have any questions about it?
Just one comment. As far as I know, the most recent other Eagle Scout project was the kiosk in the Sunnyside Dog Park?
Oh, boy, Patrick.
No,
An Eagle Scout built that for the dog park, right?
the most recent one was last year. Lydia McIntyre did the
Barns?
barn swallows at Dolly Conservancy.
Right.
Was that an Eagle Scout project?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
There's been a couple over the last couple years, and actually, Mr. Gilbert is responsible for a lot of Eagle Scout projects, so whenever I potentially have one, I'll reach out to him, and then he'll try to find a scout for us to help us with the project, so it works good, works well.
Okay. Any other questions? So we'll vote.
That's just communication.
Yeah, we don't have to vote.
Actually, discussion and action, yep, so if we have a first and a second.
Oh, you want to
Yes.
Please.
vote on it?
Yes,
Please,
that
yeah.
would like
Okay.
approval as we're spending dollars.
I'll move to approve. Let's see, this doesn't have any resolution or anything, right?
It would just, the Eagle Scout
Yeah,
project.
move to approve the Eagle Scout project proposal for Swan Creek Park by Alex Nelson.
Second.
All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed. Thank you so much.
Good job, Alex, keep in touch.
So now we're back to our regular order. And we have 5A of our action items, preliminary plat request, PP-2447-22, request by Terrell Walter, agent for 9 Springs Hill Incorporated, for approval of a preliminary plat that would create 19 parcels, of which 14 would be buildable. Approval of the plat would allow the mixed-use development between County Road MM and Highway 14. And so we look for a motion to approve.
I move approval.
Any second?
I'll second.
Okay. And Terrell Walter is participating via Zoom.
Yes, good evening, all. All right, so thank you all for the opportunity to come forth before you. I wish I was there with you in person. It's about 10 degrees warmer there in Fitchburg than here in Milwaukee, so would certainly appreciate that. But I'm homeward bound due to my wife who's due any day, so I appreciate the flexibility. So for this project, our team at Royal Capital, we're extremely excited about the opportunity for the site that we're calling 9 Springs. You know, we view this site as an underutilized parcel or 30-acre parcel at this present time. But the great development that has taken place in this area by Terra Vesta and the active community that exists that frequents this part of the city via trails, et cetera. We wanted to build a development that really leans itself to be an addition to what's currently there by having some multi-use paths exist across the site. In addition to that, a low density, relatively low density. We're still talking 30 acres, but we're showing 335 units of mixed housing. So we have rental, we have for sale, we also have housing for the active and mature population. We don't say seniors, but that's who I'm referencing, the active and independent senior. But on our site, we like to be very intentional with how we connect our walking paths, et cetera, in a master plan type concept, utilizing the natural landscape that currently exists there, and having some active areas. The nodes that you see there that we are coining hubs are areas of activity that will exist across the site. We always seek to have a 30-minute walk across our healthy lifestyle campuses, which this is one of them. So you'll notice that our interconnected walk paths are vary in terms of widths of sidewalks to be multi-use paths all the way to your more standard sidewalk. But in addition to that, we try to have a 30-minute walk for healthy cardiovascular exercise. In addition to that, connecting people to all parts of the campus so that the people that live here can coexist, truly build that sense of community. In addition to that, we're open to, we want to invite people into the site, allow them to enjoy the natural landscape, and in addition to that, the amenities that we'll have here. So this slide really shows the multi-use paths, as well as, those that are internal, and how we're connecting from MM all the way, down the hill closer to Highway 14. We really want to utilize every square foot of the site as best as we can. Again, highlighting the natural landscape, understanding the topography of the site. Some would consider this a challenge site. So we really wanted to bring forth a development that allows us to develop it in a way that gives respect to what's currently there, while at the same time, determining the highest and best use. So here's some examples of the trail system, that we want to bring forth and at the site, and other examples of the nodes that we're considering hubs across the site. So just some inspiration imagery of the type of activity we want to exist. So variation in terms of walk paths and other trail type system to kind of tie into what's currently there. We're extending multi-use path along Highway MM and hopes for some interconnectivity to what's already going on there in the area. In addition to that, internal to the site, really utilizing a lot of landscape features to highlight the architecture that's going to exist on the buildings, but at the same time, just provide a comfy place to hang out at the site so that people really feel comfortable coming here. In addition to that, hanging out, building that sense of community. And we know that this is going to be a multi-generational site. So we want to have active opportunities for children and adults alike. In addition to that, have some natural convening areas that support people gathering over food, hanging out to read a book, or being active by way of playing pickleball or other is one of the things that we're considering. We're at the point right now where we have our general implementation plan approved through Plan Commission and Common Council, and we're going to take the next steps for the specific implementation plan, where we look to further design what a lot of these hubs look and feel like. Part of that will be coming back before you to discuss, some of the areas that we have across the site that may or may not be dedicated, that we would see, as being dedicated for parkland, and working with you all to figure out, make sure that we're getting best practices on the best way to make sure that those areas feel incorporated into what's already existing out there and tapping into or expanding upon the current amenities that exist. And then, as identified, this is our site. This is preliminary plat that has come before you and was in your package, identifying the 19 parcels and 14 that are buildable.
And if I might, Terrell, what I did do include in the packet for the commissioners, if they're not familiar with the location, it is the Fawcett, the Fawcett property. For anyone that doesn't realize where this site is, so I provided in their packet a little bit of that location. And as I mentioned in the Park Commission, my agenda comments, that as the Park Commission, our role is to take a look at the parks and what they're looking to propose, and certainly I know Terrell and his team are real interested in what the Park Commission may have to say regarding the parkland that they're looking to propose. But I would also ask, the Park Commission, which Terrell alluded to, that this might be a local kind of a project, but how, we need to keep in mind how this project will tie into neighboring projects that we have within this area. So I guess we could open it up to questions. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Questions, anybody?
Yeah.
Julia?
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. So I have a couple of questions regarding the park's amenity in this development. So all these social hubs that they are in the packet, this is part of your planning, your intent to build this type of, amenities in the site?
That is correct. Yes. So we want to have activated hubs throughout the site that we're going to build, within our development costs. We're going to bring those areas to fruition as active amenities. We see them as demand drivers. At the end of the day, no matter what type of apartment community or for sale component you're building, you're asking people to spend their dollars with you. People have options. People have choices. So we know that as a demand driver, people look to coexist with others in their community. I think one thing that the pandemic has taught us that people like to be able to spend more time in or around their homes, and having those activated nodes that we're considering hubs go a long way. So this is actually a best practice for Royal Capital, where we, when we're looking at a site that's north of 10 acres, we really look to highlight green space. In addition to that, have activated spaces exist across the site.
Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I have a follow-up question. Are these social hubs parks are going to be open to the public, or they are also for this neighborhood?
Open to the public.
Okay.
So from our standpoint, we think we'd be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't have this site open for others to come visit and participate. Now, we understand that, that requires some very intentional property management and ensuring that, we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we're considerate of the individuals that choose to live here and create that sense of community. But we don't want this to be closed off. So no gates, we're not blocking anybody out from participating here at the site.
I have another follow-up question, and then Patrick. Okay. So who
Yes,
is
ma'am.
going to be maintaining all these social hubs of park? Is you guys are going to be doing the maintenance of this and replacement and?
Yes, at this point in time, so the plan of action is that, from Royal Capital standpoint, these items will be maintained through our overall operating costs across the site from by way of, having essentially a homeowners association that contributes fees. So, this will be built out amongst the for sale and rental component, as well as the active and mature population. But each building or site will be set up to be its own business that will need to contribute to an overall association for maintenance purposes.
Okay, Patrick?
Yeah, I'm aware of a couple of earlier proposals for this very same site, so I want to check on the history. Does this have any connection with Larry Jacoby?
No, sir.
Okay.
This one does not.
Are you aware of a proposal, it had to be at least 5 years ago, by him?
Not Larry Jacoby. I am familiar
another.
with the proposal from an individual with the last name of Alexander
Yeah.
by the name of Ed Edge.
Yeah, that was the second one I was going to ask about, is if this is any connection with Randy Alexander?
No connection. So Royal
Okay.
Capital, we're a separate development entity. I will say one thing that we were able to do was study the Ed Edge development. Some of the streetscape, we took some of what we thought were positive elements that they had in their development design, but really, look to give it a fresh look for, what stands as the best practice from our standpoint.
Okay, so, again, no connection with Randy Alexander, but you're aware of his proposal, so you're picking up some elements that he had worked on and kind of going from there. At least you're not going from complete scratch then.
That's correct. So
Okay.
our project team includes JSD from an engineering and landscape design standpoint. They actually worked on that project during the preliminary plat and all of the engineering work. Where that one was pretty far down the road. We were very intentional with the selection of our teammates so that, we wouldn't be starting from scratch. We were able to bring forth a lot of historical knowledge of the site by way of the seller as well as our project teammates at JSD.
Right, and they hit a lot of, construction conflicts and design conflicts and everything. So what's the tallest number of stories of any of your buildings?
3 stories.
3,
That's all
okay.
as we go here.
So
Yes, sir.
are you aware that in their discussion and evaluation, they kind of came to the conclusion from some of their consultants that building more than 2 stories had a risk of sinking into the ground?
Yes, sir. And that's why, we initially had buildings as tall as 5 stories on our plan. We've been under site control on this site for over a year now. During our due diligence, part of that was actually engaging PSI from a geotechnical standpoint to study the soils here. So we have soils reports, soil borings completed across the site for our specific development. We've gone to mainly 2-story buildings, except for those 2 buildings you see in red right on Highway MM that are for our active and mature population, which tend to have smaller units because individuals that are in those units are typically downsizing. So from a weight and or bearing capacity standpoint, we're very confident, that we're designing to the site. But that was part of why our building heights have come down, just by way of further studying the site and understanding what needs to happen here. We know we're going to have to do a deep foundation system. We're offsetting the additional cost that comes by way of that. by having a lower cost of construction by way of our 2- and 3-story buildings.
I'm looking at one of the pages here. The red buildings say senior living, but it says in there 2 stories. Is there a change?
They're actually 2- to 3-story buildings. Now that's going to come by way of final design. We think by studying them that they'll need to be 3 stories by way of how the size of the buildings in that site area.
Okay, so in other words, you've determined that right along Highway M there is more stable of ground.
That's correct. From the soil borings that we've done today, we're still studying that in terms of the deep foundation systems that we'll have to do across the site. But those are the items that we'll be bringing forward in front of the city in our specific implementation plan, which we're hoping to come back to the city this summer yet. Okay,
And then on the west side of this site, which would be just directly east of Highway 14, from occasionally driving on Highway 14 and looking in from that side, the terrain is extremely rough with, huge chunks of concrete sticking out of the ground yet and everything. So you're going to do something with all of that? I see in your area H on here, you've got a zigzag path working down some steep hillside, so that's all going to be covered.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the plan, to have some grading take place there, understanding that there's a natural topography that exists there. We're not going to make up for 50 feet of decreasing grade in that area, but we will do some grading, some seeding, et cetera, to have that space being utilized. I see that space. We want that space to be multi-use. The walking trail. In addition to that, we think it'll be a cool sledding hill. Come the winter months. So long as we can figure out how we keep people from, going too fast from a speed standpoint, when we're talking about a change of about 50 feet in grade there.
Okay, and that's also the area that is being proposed as parkland, that whole western area of your site.
That is correct. From early iterations, that's what we've identified to date in our discussions amongst the team. We're going to be spending more time intentionally amongst all consultants on our side of the aisle. We've also engaged Vanderwall and Associates, Brian Munson, who work with our team, that we're going to be reviewing this in detail as we take it from the general implementation phase, or plan up to specific implementation.
Okay, I'm just thinking, and from what I've seen of there, that area is going to take a lot of work to make something usable out of it. And I want to just note to the commission here that the Park Commission has been, to call it politely, left with land that was otherwise unusable by developers, and sometimes that was not very usable.
Yeah, and
Thank
that's
you.
a concern, excuse me, that I wanted to raise, is that we have to be left with something that can be maintained by the staff. And as steep as it is, to learn more will be helpful. In our packet, I see on our page 16 is like the olive green area that goes above and to both sides of the wet pond, and all of that is then apparently quite steep, correct? I mean,
So
the park areas that you're indicating are in green on your image.
yeah, so that the H area, yes, there's a drop off in grade there for sure, and that's why we see it as it's not a flat area.
Right.
And I wouldn't, I'm not looking to, lead anybody down that path that it is. And that's why we have the zigzag walking path that we're going to install there, looking to connect it back, to the east side of the site.
So then would you be installing all the plantings? The concern I have is that when something is steep, it's very difficult to maintain. And so you could conceivably have plantings established, but the amount of work it takes year after year to keep it up can be really difficult. And so,
Yeah, I understand that. It is our anticipation that as part of our development plan, we would be, bringing that area of the site up to an acceptable design. So we're going to be planning for it, paying for it, and we'll be designing that out with JSD, who's our landscape architect on the project.
okay, and then another question, of all the paths that you show internally, are those all pathways that you would maintain? Or,
That is the anticipation.
okay, and then the one that
Yeah.
goes from the park, so roughly from the east to the west, going out to highway, that's correct? That's an access point for the public to come straight through, and your own population to come straight through and down into the park. And on our end, we have to talk about connections from your development to others. So do you have plans for anything like a sidewalk or a paved path along your frontage with Highway MM?
Yes, the red arrow that you see there is actually a multi-use path. So we see that being a wide walking path. Look at it as 10 to 20 feet wide, as a multi-use path for individuals to traverse. From south to north, or either way. But it's our goal that with that path we're connected into other areas of the city in this area.
Any other questions? Oh, I see Heidi.
Yes, so I get, my questions run similar. In looking at the calculations that Scott Endel put forward, it looks like roughly 30 acres of land would be park dedicated. And I'm not sure how you get 30 acres out of that, unless, are you maybe including those little hubs that you have in between the buildings and all of that?
Well,
Because
and-
I have to be honest, I would probably not go into somebody else's neighborhood like that and sit on a park bench, So I'm just wondering how that's going to be made obvious to the public.
Yeah, Heidi. So this site is just north of 30 acres. There's no way we can dedicate 30 acres of parkland. We would essentially be giving the city the entire site by way of what we're hoping to build here from a residential standpoint. So what we would do is look at opportunities for areas and quantify it for the acreage that we can dedicate, and then we would look at all of those areas and work with the Parks Commission, Parks Department to identify what's our fees associated. So it would be a hybrid model, where we anticipate that we would incur some fees as a result of what we're doing. We hope that those are minimal. We want to be considerate because of the additional costs that we're already going to have, for sure, by way of the deep foundation systems and other. But we are not planning to hit the target in terms of dedication and in lieu of paying a fee. We just couldn't get there and build what we're planning to build here.
Okay, and then, so then are you including those little spots, those hubs, as parkland dedication, since you say they're open to the public?
Those are the areas that we have to further define, Heidi. I certainly want to make sure that we have a good handle on, what's going to go there in terms of finality for those hubs. We have an idea of some inspiration imagery. As part of our specific implementation and what we're going to be doing next, we're going to be further defining those areas, and we will want to make sure that there's a true win-win versus just blindly saying that yes, we anticipate dedicating those areas. We want to be fair to the parks as well as ourselves, just to make sure that we're not overcommitting in any of these areas here.
Right, okay, and then, so my final question is, so the parking spaces, are those then also going to be open to the public, or will those just be dedicated to the people living there? Because if people are coming to the park, they're probably going to need, they can't park on County M.
Yeah, totally. And I get that. And what you're not seeing here is internal to our street network, we have street parking ample street parking, north of 120 spaces. In addition to that, we're adequately parked from a residential standpoint, typically 2-to-1. And are, at most of the buildings outside of the active and mature population housing, where we actually have valet parking established for that area.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? Chris?
I was going to say, I actually am generally in support of the public parkland dedication being sort of along the west side there, because if you kind of zoom in on the sheet that, outlines the project area over an aerial photo, that's really the only area of the project site that contains any appreciable mature trees. And so that being maintained as parkland, I think, has some significant value to it. Also, depending on how we address it, I think the topography there could be an asset more than a downfall. We have a few playgrounds in flat fields already. So I think if we're able to make something interesting of a wooded area with steep topography that could be, it can be hiking trails, it could be mountain bike paths, it could be cross-country skiing. We would be able to do some interesting things there that we can't do elsewhere. So I think that, of this development site, that is the area that I think is particularly valuable to us as a Parks Commission. So I like the direction the plan is going with that. So that's all I had.
Okay. Julia?
Yes, this question is for Scott. Scott, you mentioned in your comment that we should be looking at also to the parkland dedication in this packet. So what do you want us to look to determine here? Because if we are approving this, we are also approving the park dedication too?
With it being a preliminary plat, Julia, and
Okay.
the comments that we're receiving, I think is going to be valuable to Terrell and his team. They'll be coming back with some more defined.
Okay.
So from the Park Commission's perspective, and I think Chris alluded to it, that generally the area that they're looking to propose as park looks good. I think the idea of connections, not only within their development, but how they're going to connect them to neighboring trail systems and things like that are valuable stuff from the Park Commission's perspective.
So my question is, so we are going to discuss this more in detail in a future meeting?
There'll be final plats that'll come through, and then at that point, then we'll do the calculations.
Okay.
And really, the comments are just a general, and as Terrell alluded to, it'll be a combination of parkland along with fee in lieu of parkland dedication, along with the improvement fees that'll come along with the development. But those will be finalized as the plans are finalized.
So my final comment is I agree with you, Chris, about the park. We should look for, if we have this topography, that we can see as an opportunity instead as a challenge, and recreate something different that we don't have in other parks in the city will be great. And also like all the social hubs, you know what I mean? I really like that concept, and I think if you can implement that already in the future, it will be great. So this is our unique amenity, and that it looks pretty cool in the packet. So.
Well, and another thing I might add, that when you're sitting on top of that hill, you can see the skyline of the Capitol, so it is a cool vista from there, so that's another benefit.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
In light of the steep terrain on the western side of this, which needs to be worked on a lot in order to make it usable, because it looks pretty dangerous the way that I've last seen it, I'm wondering, at this point, do you think for your entire site, do you need to excavate and remove material from this whole site? Do you need to bring in material to fill in? Or are you just within the site moving material around?
We will naturally have some grading to do at the site, so there will be a level of excavation. Everything we excavate will need to be hauled off before we're laying our foundations.
So you're,
So there will be grading, especially for the street network, et cetera, that we'll be bringing through the site.
so you're removing material from the site?
We will have to, yes, sir.
Okay. And then otherwise grading and re-landscaping?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Who am I not seeing up there?
I just have
Oh,
one
okay, Sarah, go ahead.
just one comment that, agreeing kind of with the other people, Julia and Chris, saying that I do think this is nice that it's working with the terrain and offering something different. And I know just from our parks and open spaces plan, we've said that we've wanted to kind of offer more unique park options. And so I do appreciate that that is in line with our plan that we've talked about previously.
Okay. All right, so this is an approval of the preliminary. Oh, Heidi. Heidi, did you have another comment?
Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted. I wanted to agree with some of the other members here in terms of the uniqueness. I'm sorry, did you guys hear any of that?
No,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My dog is barking. So we had talked about at one point having a conservancy, and I'm wondering if this might be an area where we could consider something like that, since the topography is so different. Hello?
yeah,
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if anybody heard me. That was just my comment.
okay. All right,
So sorry.
that's all right. Another member of the committee heard from.
Yeah, she likes the conservancy idea.
Yeah, sounds good to me too. All right, so now, we've already got our motion second on the preliminary plat request. Those in favor of approval?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, okay, thank you, Terrell.
Thank you all for your time this evening.
Thank you. Okay. 5B, which is Certified Survey Map Request CS-2434-22 by Dan Day, agent for Viridian Homes, for approval of a certified survey map to dedicate as a public park Outlot 7 of the Crescent Crossing subdivision at the intersection of Spark Street, Manong Lane, and Wildcat Drive, which was postponed from April 7th, 2022 meeting. Do we have a motion? A second?
Second.
Okay. And seated before us are Matt Brink and Chris Ellers.
I'm actually Dan Day from D'Onofrio-Kaki. I forgot to put in a slip, so,
Oh,
yeah, Matt's sitting back there, so.
oh, okay. Hi, Matt.
Scott, do you want us to give a quick little
Yeah, Scott,
summary,
did you
or?
have anything? Scott
Well,
had something first to.
Yeah, maybe I might,
Yes.
maybe just kick it off to kind
you
of
bet.
frame it. This group has been before us several times, and actually, I did want to share that we met with the city administrator, the city attorney, the finance director. What Mr. Ellers and their team are proposing are a little bit outside of our norm in regards to park improvement amenities and the payment thereof. They also have proposed to us the idea of, if you recall, maintenance through the homeowners association, but after discussion with internally, we're thinking that that's not an option at this point. But at this point, what we're looking to try to pursue is the idea that the group would propose what they would put in the parks. We would publicly bid them. they would get them installed, and then at the end of the day, they would receive credit towards their park improvement fees for the amenities that they install. So if you had a chance to take a look at my agenda comments, there's a couple different bullets that we included in your agenda comments that would be the conditions that the group would look to try to achieve. And then if the Park Commission is good with this, what do we call it, this framework, then they would work to come back to the Park Commission in June with the final proposal.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Chris Ellers from Viridian Homes and Dan Day from D'Onofrio Cockey and Associates. Just kind of following through here a little bit on Crescent Crossing some more, and we've got two areas there that we originally had designated as private open space. But as the project started to evolve and we started to dive into it a little bit more, we felt that there was two park areas that we wanted to improve, but felt that they were going to be open to the public, that we should try to get some park credit for those improvements that we were going to be making there. In that process, through the last year plus with the city attorney and relative staff, we've come across a process here that we think we can go forward and approve. Part of that would be dedicating these lands as public parks to get the park credit dedication, and then also doing the improvements per Scott's discussion there for those parks as a publicly bid park improvements, and then Viridian go ahead and implement those, and then get reduction on their park fees for those improvements. We were here approximately a year ago in front of the commission, and I can't remember who was all here and not here at that point in time. Kind of talked about this concept with what we were proposing in the parks. I think we all kind of had a good sign off on it and thought it was a good idea. It's really taken us that long to get the logistics in the background kind of teed up here because we had to go back to each and every owner that now owns a house in Crescent Crossing and get them to sign off on this. And we've got all that legwork done and in place. So really it's a matter of just getting the park commissions, yeah, we like this idea, and then we will work with the city attorney and the administrator and Scott to formalize and do a formal agreement that can be then approved by the park commission and then the city council, which then we will go ahead and, once we record the CSMs, that will put those areas into as publicly dedicated. Chris, anything else you want to touch base on?
Just that it is connected to the master trail system, so the trails go right up to it that go through Crescent Crossing, Stoner Prairie, Lacey Heights, Seminole Forest, every neighboring and neighborhood for miles. So it is connected. That's the whole point of this. It's connectivity. It's a little different than the other dog parks in town in that it's smaller. There's some built-in mini obstacles for the dogs. But it's meant to really walk, it's a walk-to site. There is some street parking available, but due to the proximity and the number of houses in this area, I think we'll be impressed with how much it gets used and just how many dog owners are in a walkable distance. So it's always been fully disclosed to everyone that's moved out here that it would potentially be a dog park. No opposition whatsoever, so.
I just want to clarify that I'm on the right item because I thought B was for the tot lot and then the discussion for the next. We have to have them separated.
We've kind of wrapped them in together.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
so
I
yeah,
can appreciate why you would. We have to separate them.
So
The tot lot is our first.
I'll talk about the tot lot for a sec. Again, we've spec'd a play structure based on the customer, consumer group, average age of the family that's buying houses out here. It's fascinating what's going on. There's definitely a need for this type of housing in Fitchburg. It's entry-level housing. It's catering to young families with young children. So the play structure and tot lot will be geared more towards kids ages 2 to 5. There's also a unique opportunity, and we've seen quite a few single parents move in. We offer a floor plan that has just one garage and 3 bedrooms, and it's become very popular, so much so that we're going to be building more this summer out there to meet this demographic and just this need that has risen up into Fitchburg and given first-time home buyers the opportunity to actually afford something, so.
Question, Julia?
I have a couple of questions about this. So first is, I remember when this project came to Plan Commission several years ago, the discussion was this pocket park, and the other parcel will be more like a private parks for this subdivision. So now you're planning to dedicate the land, so it's become public. So all the citizens all the residents of the city can use this park. So if I look at, first of all, we are going to discuss the pocket park. See, if I look at the pocket park and I live, I don't live in the proximity, but I live more like Seminole Highland or Seminole Ridge or whatever those. How can I come here and park here? Because it seems like we are going to have some parking, or we need to park on the street, and what is going to, if I am a homeowner in that subdivision and I see, people coming to my park, so what is how we are making this pocket park more accessible to everyone resident, because it's going to be public now? And who is going to maintain this park?
Go ahead.
Yeah, and really, Julia, this is their neighborhood park, so it's really designed for the walkable neighborhood, Lot 7. I wouldn't anticipate that neighbors from another neighborhood who would actually have a neighborhood park would drive to this park, but once it is developed and accepted by the city, it would be maintained by the city.
There's, in proximity between looking at all the neighborhoods and what will potentially get built at Stoner Prairie, this will complement that, and that this is meant for the younger kids, for the adjacent neighborhoods. So Seminole Forest, Lacey, Stoner Prairie, and Crescent Crossing would probably be the primary users, as many pocket parks around Fitchburg are meant to serve the adjacent neighborhoods connecting to it. So yeah, that part's the reality of it. And within those, though, I mean, you have close to probably 500-600 households that it would serve.
So no, I understand that position, Chris. My concern is that we are dedicated park dedication line to the city, and my understanding, because I am dealing with other park in other parts of the city, is that when you do that, the parcel become public to everyone. Everyone can use it. So I don't want to see that this pocket park is become only exclusive for the people living in those areas, and that's it, what I mean? And
Right.
So, I mean, it's been our intent all along, whether this was private or public, that it was going to be open to the public and can be used by anybody across the neighborhoods. This park has, there's a considerable amount of street parking around it for that, and there's a considerable amount of sidewalk connections to going east, west, north, south, all the way through here. And with it being centrally located and as dense as this area is, there's a considerable amount of population base within a very short walking distance of this park. Again, we see these as walk-to parks versus drive-to parks, but there is street parking to accommodate for that.
Anything else? Julia? No? Katie?
I had one quick comment on the pocket park. If we still have any choice in the amenities presented for that one, it seems like a good spot to have a small covered structure, simply because many of the lots here are very small. It would be one of the few opportunities for people to sit outside.
We'll take a look at that.
Yes, please.
We'll take a look at that. I'm concerned that the size of the park, it might not be appropriate for it, and to take a peek with that, but I'm a little concerned that it's just a little too small to be able to allow for some sort of covered area like that.
Will there be a structure at Stoner Prairie?
We're going to be talking about that in a couple agenda items, but I would suspect there might be some kind of a facility in Stoner Prairie, right?
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at it. We'll make sure there's one in one park or the other.
Yeah, I was understanding Katie, and I agree a little bit to that point that the people who live right there have very little for their own yard, and if they're going to come out and sit outside a small, I mean, they're all various
And when I
sizes.
say small, I was meaning 2 picnic tables worth. You know, we're
Yeah,
talking
small,
small.
yeah, just some place to sit in the shade and
Yeah.
something to think about.
We can address that with planting more trees too, to create a shade too.
True.
Yeah, we want to have a green space for kids to play though, too.
Right,
an
so
open
we
space.
do want to have at least a little open space that you can throw a little ball or a Frisbee or something around. So we don't want to get too overdense with structure kind of things, but we'll take a peek at it and take a look.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead.
You could explain something here. On page 34 of our packet, anyway, it shows a map here of the plats.
It's the Outlot 7 map.
Right. And it shows Outlot 7, and then there's in bolder print an Outlot 14. What is
Yeah.
that about?
So as part of the process that we've been through here over the last year, the city attorney, and for us to dedicate this Outlot 7 as a public outlot, she's requiring us to do a CSM over top of the current Outlot 7 and use that CSM as the vehicle for the dedication. So when you do that, then you have to not name it the same number. So that's why we're calling it Outlot 14. So it'll be technically Outlot 14 of CSM number whatever, which was formerly Outlot 7 of Crescent Crossing. So it's just a legal thing behind the scenes.
Okay, and the bold lines going all the way around it, that's the whole Outlot 14.
That is correct.
Okay, so that is, the whole area is what we're talking about. I mean, it's not, for example, divided in half or a slice or something like that.
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions, comments?
So,
Yes, Leah.
yeah, there is a comment in the packet, in the note from Scott. In the last part, it's the last sentence or paragraph. That is said, however, we don't believe that we can offer a credit of reduction in fee in lieu of park line dedication, essentially public money, without it. I don't know what you're trying to say here, Scott.
What, in order to be eligible to use those credit for those fees, the project needs to be publicly bid.
Does that make sense?
We've done this same process with other municipalities. Sun Prairie is very identical to this process, and we'll take the lead on the public bid side, obviously working with the city, but we seem to get better pricing from doing that and keep things moving in an orderly fashion, so.
Maybe I could have you bid some of our other.
Do you do subcontract work?
Yeah, I know.
Old buddy Opal. am I?
Yeah, but we were very familiar with this process, and
We've done it twice in Sun Prairie now over the last 3 years.
so it has been done before.
Yep.
Okay.
I have another question. So when you guys select the equipment, the playground, are you gonna come to us and show us that, or no? Or we are done here?
Is it detail in the?
We can, in the next packet, Scott, I think we did that a year ago. We had the actual equipment in the packet, but we can bring it back again, Julia, if you would like us to.
And certainly the equipment, right, would need to be approved by the Parks Department.
Oh, okay.
They're going to be using our same qualification, or same specifications and those kinds of things when they publicly bid it. And yeah, you did provide what it was some time ago.
And we've shown it to you and staff and received comments back. Yeah.
Yep.
In any equipment, so I don't know.
I can
Okay.
send it out to everybody.
And Patrick?
Scott, now, if I've got this straight on the history of this was going to be a privately owned park available to the public. Now, you said that for some reason that was not possible or so, and it had to be a public park. Could you say a little more about that? And primarily, in your view, does this become a better deal for the city that it immediately becomes a city-owned park?
I'll let Dan and Chris maybe talk to the process on how we got here, but certainly from the city park perspective, and I think what it does is it immediately gets the project up and running and developed and those kinds of things, and they have to play by all of our specifications and rules and things like that, but it expedites the project much more quickly than, and it sounds to me like it even less expensive than the city can do it.
Expediting meaning what? Getting playground equipment and such into it faster?
Yep, getting it done, yep.
Okay.
Yep, getting it
I mean, and again, backing all the way up to when this project was being approved, there was never, I mean, there was questioning over the plat and the units, but what was in flux at the time was Fitchburg was adapting new stormwater ordinance based on county requirements or what Fitchburg was going to require, and so we had to leave more open space in flux, and we couldn't designate it park right away because we didn't know how much stormwater area would be required.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm
Yep,
wrong. with
no,
this.
that's exactly what I was gonna say,
So,
yeah.
once we were going through with the plat, we really had to hone in then on the engineering design, and then that's when everything was flushed out with the stormwater, and they made sure that it was correctly sized, and then that's what left the open areas for the park sites. So it was always envisioned to be park site, but we just couldn't start out that way because we kind of caught the time frame of when everything was switching over.
Anything else, Patrick? That answers the question? Any other questions? Okay, so regarding certified survey map request CS 2434-22, all those in favor of approval?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Our next item is certified survey map request CS-2435-22. Dan Day for Viridian Homes for approval of a certified survey map to divide Outlot 11 of the Crescent Crossing subdivision into two parcels, one parcel for private open space and the second parcel dedicated as public park located at Minong Lane, postponed from April 7th. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move approval.
A second?
Second.
Okay, and Scott, you have remarks?
Yeah, this is the same methodology that we're proposing here, but this is not the tot lot, if you would. This is the dog park, outlot 11.
Yeah, and we're splitting this outlot in half because it wrapped all the way around the north and west sides of the area, but only this eastern part, north is to the right on this map. Only the eastern part of it is what we're going to dedicate as dog park. And so this is where Chris had mentioned that we thought we might have to do some stormwater management, but in the end, when we got to the final details, we didn't. So then we came up with the idea of doing something with the dog park, and hence the idea of coming forward with this. So again, this is very similar to the pocket park that we were talking about in how the methodology of what we're doing here. But this is the dog park that we're contemplating to move forward with and dedicate this portion of that outlot 11 to the city. And so the CSM that you're approving would split that larger outlot in roughly half, the eastern half being dedicated to the city of Fitchburg.
Julia?
Yeah, I have a question about, I want to understand, one is, you said two parts, so one is going to be a private open space. That one is, can you put that, it's called the previous map? The other one. No, that one. So there you have a small dog area and large dog area. So the small.
It's one parcel, one outlet.
Right, that's
that
all
was
one
just-
part.
That's just a proposed fence.
Right.
It's all one.
That's not the private and the public. That is
No.
all the public
All
space.
of that is a public?
That is correct, it's all
Okay,
public.
okay.
The rest of the outlot is on the west side of the
okay,
neighborhood and
okay.
wraps around the north piece. If you
Oh.
put up the
Okay.
CSM, it would be a lot more
Okay.
It's the landscaping area along Seminole.
seminal, yeah.
Yeah, page 46 kind of shows 12 and 13, which came from 11, if I got it right. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and a follow-up, Julia? and
Yeah,
Patrick.
I have another question about the dog park. So, so my question is here, like, so this is gonna be a public, it's gonna be a city dog park, isn't it now?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so the city will maintain this dog park, and it's gonna be open to everyone. So where people are gonna park here?
Again, we envision both of these parks to be more pedestrian-oriented than vehicle-oriented because we have the density of people around here between the neighborhoods to the east and and our neighborhood. We really feel that this is going to be a walk-to park. Now, there will be street parking available on Minong going east and west, but we, again, and that's where our gate, we've got a gate located there on that end, and we've got a gate on the other end for off of the path that goes along the north side of the property line. So we're definitely anticipating mostly foot traffic from the neighborhood and or the adjoining neighborhood, Stoner Prairie. But again, if somebody does drive in, there's car parking along the roadway, significant on both sides, all the way.
And maybe if I might, I would consider Sunnyside Park as kind of our community dog park, if you would, where there's parking and larger spaces to run your dog. I would anticipate that as we continue to get other developments, there may be regional dog parks, if you would, that would kind of take the form of this. Certainly it's available to the public, but I wouldn't anticipate that people that are going to Sunnyside at this point in time would be, driving over to this park. And I could see it work both ways, where if there's, residents who live in this area, I don't know how much of a dog run, if you would, this park would provide, so they would probably go to Sunnyside and have a little bit larger area to run their dog.
Yeah, it's not fun driving the dog in the car to go to the dog park. I just, speaking firsthand on this.
Katie, I see you have a question or comment.
My question relates back to the parking. I do understand that we will have street parking on Minong. If someone parks there, how do they access the large dog area? Are they expected to walk up the private alley to access that gate?
There's several ways they could get there. Once they become a known user, they could probably access the path going to the east into Stoner Prairie, or they could walk up the alley, or the public street out to the west that's got the loops there. There's another alley that goes back to basically where that gate goes. So there's really 3 to 4 different ways people can access that piece to the north.
But you're still required to walk up an alley to reach the gate.
Or the path, or the regional path that's on the north side of the park.
The path.
But the question was, if you do drive there and park on Minong, then to get to the large dog park at the north, you're on that.
Is that considered an accessible route if you are not providing any ADA parking for this or access?
Correct.
Okay. Is that a liability to us now as a public park, that there is no accessible entry?
I mean, you can park in Blackhawk, and there's a trail connection directly to Blackhawk.
So, I don't know if you heard the comment, Katie, it was that entrance to the large dog park is adjacent to the Blackhawk parking lot. Now, that would be sort of an unofficial,
But
it
why,
would be some kind of arrangement to make that it's marked
we
as
have,
such.
we have many pocket parks and various parks in Fitchburg that don't have designated ADA parking that are accessible by trail only. Why would this one be different?
Because you're dedicating land to the city, and then there are some specifications that if we are gonna use a parkland, that it had to be open and accessible to everyone. Yeah, I don't know.
Katie, was there more you wanted to add?
No, I just want to be sure that that the accessibility issue is something that you have reviewed and are comfortable with. I recognize there are probably many existing parks in everyone's systems that do not have accessible routes in. But this is a new park and not an existing park.
Is there an ADA ramp off of Minong to the sidewalk? I guess, yes, we'll
take a look at it.
We'll lay this
absolutely.
out so that, you know, you definitely have a path defined.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll definitely figure that out.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Yes, in the same way here, parking on either Wildcat there to the west and walking in on that alley in your northeast corner, or coming from the east side on whatever the street is in a different development over on that side, means parking on a residential street, and it's generally kind of unfriendly to park in front of somebody's house. It is a public street, but the people who live there usually are not real happy with it. They may even park their own cars there. So this is this seeming like a limited parking availability, and the street frontage on Minong is very narrow, right next to the park, right along the park right there.
You can park on both sides.
Okay.
It's a typical, I mean, it's a wide,
Yeah, it's typical city, Fitchburg
Okay,
Street.
and
parking
for
on
sure,
both sides.
Minong allows parking on both sides.
both sides, yes.
Just to make sure, okay.
Yes, yes.
Scott, you wanted to
But
comment?
again, I think the reality of someone driving from a different neighborhood into here, they will, but
Yeah, but this is a dog park, and people in a wider regional area may come to there because it'll be closer than Sunnyside. Another question. This was also originally proposed as a private-owned park open to the public, wasn't it?
I'm trying to remember the history. I'm not sure we ever proposed this as private until until after we came up with when we started the dog park idea, we started the discussion of it being public.
Publicly available.
It was listed as private open space, and that's
Yeah.
where the big mistake was.
Okay,
On the
now-
plat, because that's what we were told to label it as, because it wasn't gonna be used for stormwater. We were told that, is to use it as a placeholder until we came back with the park. And then when we came back with the park and we said, okay, we're all set, well, then we had to go through a bunch of hoops to remove the private open space label and go through all the clerical process to get that designation off. We should have just called it an outlot, and that would have been much easier.
Okay, and I'm trying to remember the details from when we first saw this a while ago also. And so tell me, if I'm remembering this right, wasn't this slice along there, small dog park, large dog park, this north-south corridor, isn't this underneath those high-voltage power line towers?
Yes, it is.
And at the time, it seemed like that land, that property right there was owned by, I don't know if it's ATC or some other company that owns the towers overhead, and therefore it was, for one thing, you couldn't get ownership of it. Therefore, if you can't get ownership of it, you can't turn it over to the city for ownership. So what's the status of it now?
No, that's not the case. It's always been ownership of Veridian and/or its entities.
Underneath the power line?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an easement to ATC. They do not own the land.
And they've signed
What,
off
say
on this.
that again now?
It's an
It's
easement.
just an easement, and they've
Yes.
signed off on the use.
Yes.
Legal, look through all of that.
So you have an easement with ATC for this land.
The easement,
It's just an overhead easement for
It's a-
overhead power lines.
ATC has an overhead
Oh,
easement
they
to
have,
your
okay.
land.
That's
Very
clear.
similar. It's the same thing on the stormwater basin to the south that's owned and maintained by the city. You know, there's this, just directly south of this, across Minong, there's the same easement. We've got an outlot there that's been dedicated to the city for stormwater management. Same situation.
going farther south.
Yes,
Yeah.
all the
Okay,
way
right
down
there.
to.
Okay, that makes a big difference if you have ownership at this point, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, and ATC has the easement to be overhead, then your ownership can be transferred to the city's ownership.
Correct.
If it was the other way around, if ATC owned it,
Oh, it would be
you can't
off.
give it to the.
We wouldn't be here if that
Yeah,
was
we
the
wouldn't be
Yes,
here.
Right, that's what I wanted to get clear.
Yeah.
Right. Right. No, it's
And
pretty clear.
the other questions earlier about parking, I'm just assuming that you, in this set of bullet points that Scott listed for us for both of these projects, you're going to be going to the neighbors to talk about all of this. And
It's-
so,
It's been full, yeah, we've had, I mean, it's been disclosed to everyone who's bought out here and
Okay.
in the adjacent neighborhood that this would be the dog park. This was, in fact, we get people asking about it.
okay.
Um,
So
yeah,
I understand,
A little upset that we're not done with it yet.
yeah, the summary, Scott had written in his bullet points, the summary of resident input obtained to support the proposed park plan and equipment and amenities. So all that work you're saying is already done?
Yeah.
You're not going back to the neighbors again at all?
No, I don't want to change a thing that they've already,
Well, no, not
we've
even
already
to
shown them.
change, but so even the neighbors who are in the development next to you that you're not developing, those people buying those lots know that there's gonna be a dog park.
It has been disclosed to them.
Yes, we fully disclosed to the
All right.
builder.
Meridian has disclosed to every one of their buyers, and they have now signed off on that it's okay to
Okay.
remove the private open space and dedicate it to the city.
Thank you. When I heard you say it the first time, I was thinking only of your property.
No,
And
no.
so I appreciate that.
So I want to follow that comment too, is, did you have neighborhood meetings? Because, I'm gonna give you an example. So if I am one of the owner of one of those plots, and I bought this plot like before, the dog park and was planning to be a public.
Where did you buy? Which plat?
The one in front of the dog park, okay?
Okay.
So now, one thing is to have a private dog park for the neighborhood, and now we are open this to the whole city.
It's never been disclosed that way. It's always been disclosed that it would be open to the public, whether it was private or public.
Well, but you didn't, can I finish my comment?
Sure, sorry.
So my question is, if I am a homeowner and buying that, and one thing is to have like maybe, it's 10 dogs that do have maybe 30, 40 dogs barking in front of my house, on my backyard. So my question is, I want to be sure that the neighbors that they are buying those plot or the other neighborhood beside the dog park, they know that this one is going to be a public dog park. Because it's not the same, because I remember way back, a realtor was in that neighborhood selling some of those plots, and the comment that they received, this is going to be a private dog park. So, and this was my understanding way back. So now, I realized in the last couple of 1 month or 2 months that this one is now open. You're planning to dedicate the land to the city, and this one is going to be a public dog park. And I don't have any problem with dog park or anything, but my concern is if we have done our due diligence, informing all the people around this dog park that this is a public dog park. And second, I want to be sure that, what is going to be the city liability, because they're not going to come to you to complain. They're going to come to us to complain. Mm-hmm. And also, I want is this one is going to be a public dog park? I also looking at how accessible is this dog park to everyone, because for me now it look more like, you can call it public, but for me it look like it's going to be a private dog park for the neighborhood around that area. So, and it's fine, but I think we need to call things the name they should be, give it a name that it shouldn't be. But this is my concern is, I want to be sure that everyone understands that this park can be loud, because we are not going to have 10 dogs, maybe, we're going to have 30 dogs, So I want to be sure, because, as I mentioned, people are not going to come to you to complain. They're going to come to us. And eventually this park is, we are gonna maintain. And this is, I have another question because in the packet, there is another table there that I don't know. I want Scott to explain me this thing. What is this? Crescent Crossing Homeowner Association Common Area Operational Budget. And there is like a total dog park credit. I don't know what it means that.
That's page 42.
So, this is another question that I have. What does it mean?
Can we,
Go ahead. Yeah, you want to respond, I'm sure, too.
Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, okay.
Page 42?
Are you talking about
Yeah,
this?
42.
Are you talking about
Yeah,
this chart?
That one, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's non-starter.
yeah. So we
not
had
gonna happen.
proposed that the maintenance part of it would be, for a time, would be part of the reduction of fees. And that has been taken off the table completely, so.
Well, it shouldn't be in the packet because it's confusing.
As long as you say that, that's good, but,
Yeah, no, it will not be part of the formal proposal when we come back.
okay.
Yeah,
So
and
the
again,
maintenance is off the table.
the theory there was just that to help parks, was that if the HOA jumped in and helped, would it just be a dollar for dollar reimbursement? We just wanted to offer that opportunity up, and it's just something that we said, no, not at this time, so.
And as your Parks Director, I'm very interested in that idea, and I hope that we continue to work to try and make that a reality, because our capacity is, we're not able to keep capacity to maintain these parks. So I appreciate that strategy, and I definitely want to try and be creative and create some ways to maintain these parks.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to follow up, Scott. I understand that this is, I am all out, open to new ideas and things, but if you guys are going to charge, a homeowner association fee, so you are receiving a stream of revenue to cover some of these expenses. Why?
No, we're
Well,
not.
this is how this thing look like.
Right, we would have to increase the fees next year to supplement this. And it was a pass-through, so it wouldn't have even, it would have increased in year one, and then that would have been it, because it would have just been a reimbursement program with the city. We try to keep the HOA fees as low as possible, and right now they're going towards snow removal and trash removal on the private alleys, which the city made us keep private, and then continue to tax us on as well. So that's just another thing to look at, is the city also taxes private parks.
Okay, and so I understand what I just heard about page 42 is that is not,
On the tape, that one we
It's-
cannot discuss.
That is
like,
correct.
Ignore
shouldn't be
this.
there.
Yep,
it's just gone.
yes,
Ignore it.
correct.
Point.
Okay. Go ahead, Pat.
I would ask Scott then to specifically make a note in our minutes explaining this, because we have this in our packet. I don't exactly want you to tear the packet apart and pull this out.
No, and
It's in there, we saw it, don't make things disappear, but note it specifically,
Well,
explain it in the minutes.
Typically, what I'll do is I'll include my agenda comments in the minutes, and it is included as the last paragraph of my agenda comments, so it is in there, yeah.
Yeah, I read that. I wasn't real clear on what it referred to, if it is specifically talking about these back charges on page 42. Make that really clear that that's what you mean,
Will do.
Yeah, sorry, I misunderstood
And-
as well.
Julia.
And who,
Yeah, this is for Scott, and I would like to know how much it's gonna cost to operate this and clean and maintain this dog park. How much is gonna be the operational cost, because, that one is something that ALDER are requesting now from every park, operational cost, so we should have, what are the operational costs for this?
And are you aware of the park fees that we're paying here too? Okay, good. Good, and that there will still be a nice amount of park fees being paid even after the parks are built here. So it should help provide funding for the maintenance of these for well into the future. We can get exact numbers once we get the bids in.
This is not only for you, it's because I think this is something that I think the council is looking at determine every time that we build a new park, It's
Yeah.
great, but we need to know how much it's gonna cost to maintain the future, and I think we should ask this question to every park that's coming in front of us.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Heidi?
Hi, so I'm sorry to come back to this, but this sort of gets back to the situation we had last month where we're voting on something and discussing something where we don't have real numbers. And I know that you can't get exact numbers, I understand that, but to put something in here and then say, oh, well, ignore that, that's not really what's gonna happen. Again, I feel like we're doing a public disservice here by voting on something that we don't really know what the cost is gonna be for maintenance or any of that. So, I mean, I guess what I would like to do, again, is I would like to propose that we table this until real numbers can be put forward so that we can have a better picture of what this is really gonna look like.
Well, and if I might, really what we're looking to do here, Heidi, is to approve, like we did with the previous agenda item, the framework, which is indicated in the packet, in those final, those final numbers and credit and all of that will be in a future agreement, if you would.
Right, I understand that, but you have numbers in here. And I understand you've said to us, okay, but don't ignore that, that isn't real. But then that sort of makes what we're voting on or what we're being asked to do not real, because if there were no numbers there, that's fine, but when you've got numbers there, again, you're sort of voting on something that's a fallacy, and I have concern about voting for this when there's numbers involved, if they're not real numbers.
So,
Question to clarify? Okay.
Just go ahead. You had something you wanted to say.
so I mean, this evening, you're voting on the CSM. You're not voting on the park credit or anything else that we receive. That will be part of the formal agreement as it comes forward. This is just really trying to get your feedback if you like this framework of us doing the work and getting the park credit for it. And then we'll come back with the formal agreement, because we got an agreement we need to negotiate with the city staff to formalize all this. If you don't like this, we're not gonna spend the time with the lawyers putting together an agreement that costs money to put together. If you like this, then we'll go forward and do the agreement and make this happen.
And we'll come back with actual numbers.
Come back with actual numbers.
I understand what you're saying. I mean, I understand we're voting on the framework here, but do you see what I'm saying, where you've got numbers here and they're in the packet, they're numbers we were asked to consider, and now we're being told, no, don't consider those numbers, they're not real. And
No,
that's
they're
why
not
I
part of
feel
the
like,
agreement. It was a totally separate circumstance.
And I understand why it'd be a little confusing, I do. But again, this is about the CSM and the splitting of the parcel and whether you would
then
accept.
the numbers shouldn't have been in there. I'm
No,
not
they shouldn't have.
confused. I just don't think it should have been in there.
I have a
I
question.
don't disagree with you.
And a question for Heidi. When you're talking about the numbers, you're talking about that first graph we were talking about the 5 years of expenses to,
No, it's about this whole memo. I mean,
Right. And then, yeah, so there's
Because
23
there's
to
also on-
27.
there's page 38, which has the information about the change in the park fees. But the other is expenses charged to the city for the work done in the dog park over 5 years. So I just want to make sure I know what you were talking about.
Well, I mean, actually, that's a really good question, Sue, because at this point, I mean, if the numbers in that 5-year graph aren't correct, then I'm also wondering, are the numbers in this memorandum correct?
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
I think, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, we have the opportunity to define what those numbers will be in the future. What we're deciding now has nothing to do with what the park will cost to install or maintain or anything. We're simply saying this will become a city park. of some type. We could change our mind in theory and make it a swimming pool if we want to, right? We're just saying we're approving this outlot being subdivided into two, one of which will be dedicated to the city. So we don't need to be concerned right now with what it's going to cost, because we will determine that later in another meeting. So I think we should focus on the issue at hand here and vote on it and move along.
And I don't mind doing that, but then I would like in the motion for it to say that the numbers that are presented in this packet have really nothing to do with the
already
vote that
say
we're
it.
taking tonight.
I think,
We already say that, Heidi.
But it's not in the motion.
well, the motion doesn't address dollars at all. It's just, we ended up with this extra information that
Is
commissioners.
now part of the public record.
Well, studied and believed was part of what we may have needed to discuss. So,
Right, and it's part of the public record, and we're going to be voting on this. I mean, I have no problem voting on it because I think this is a good idea, but I think we need to be very clear that this vote is irrespective of the numbers presented in the packet.
okay, and thank you. And Sarah, I see you have your hand.
Sorry, yes, I was just gonna say, I think that we talked about this before, that just there are needs for dog parks, that just people have gotten more dogs, and that I think it helps residents that don't have dogs for having a space for them to be dedicated to be off leash. So I support this as the first idea that, or, the first draft of the idea that we're coming through. It's gonna come back. I support this initiative.
And to reiterate, we will see these numbers again or be discussing it in more detail in the future. Is that correct, Scott?
Right, these numbers need to be updated because they were done before the maintenance discussion happened, and was before the publicly bid process has to be inserted into this also. So
Okay.
these numbers need to be updated for those two items.
Yeah. And our description and the motion doesn't address numbers, it's just addressing the map.
Yeah, in the future, I will recommend, Scott, that when you include information in the packet, you include the relevant information to the packet, no additional information that doesn't have anything to do, because it's confusing. So that's it. This is my and another. My comment about this is, I don't have anything against dog park, and I think it's a good idea to have another dog park. But my recommendation will be that when you're coming back forward, you need to show us the parking issue, because I have a concern about the parking issue, because believe me, you think that this park is gonna only attract people from those areas. Believe me, it's gonna attract people from different parts of the city, and it's gonna be an issue with parking. And so I would like to know if you can address that issue about parking in the how to address that, and then how to access. What Katie, another concern that she had about accessibility and ADA. I would like that to be discussed and bring some ideas, because that one is my concern, because as I mentioned before, when the complaint started, because people living in that area see a lot of car parking in front of them, and they're gonna complain to us, to the city, not to you guys.
Okay. Patrick, and then we'll vote.
Okay. I am going along with, as Chris describes this, we're just deciding on whether to accept this or not. But I do see Heidi's point, even if it is just to stay ahead of these things, because when we, sit down at the meeting here, we study in advance and everything, and then we got a lot of numbers and we got a lot of questions and everything. It's good to kind of see what may be coming up and what we maybe need to think about for the next meeting or so, next decision on this. So, as I understand it, not only the expenses that were listed on page 42 of our packet, that table there, but also, tell me if this is right, the reductions of park fees on page 38. That whole thing of reductions, we are mentally to ignore that page also?
Correct.
Okay, good.
The memo will look the same, but there'll be different numbers in
Okay,
there.
all right, Scott,
Be actual.
be sure to clarify that in the minutes. Mentally
that's
ignore
clarified,
42
then
and 38.
Heidi, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and if that is very clear, then I have no problem supporting this. I just want to make sure, because this is public record, I want to make sure that, you know, the public is aware that we are voting just on that, irrespective of these numbers.
Yeah, that's my feeling too.
Okay. We are going to vote now. Certified survey map request CS 2434-22, those in favor?
Wait, 30. Which one?
Did I
Restate
get to,
the-
oh, I'm sorry, I went to the wrong page. I've been flipping back and forth.
No, she said 34
No,
is
that was the
35.
that was the top, that was the tot lot. Oh, and now I'm at the dog park. Certified survey map request CS 2435-22, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And in defense of myself, I guess I just like to provide as much information as I possibly can and be transparent, and I'll certainly be more careful not to include
I have no
stuff that
objection to
isn't
more
related to
information
it.
as long as we understand why it's there, and it maybe is to think about for the future, for like the next step, a meeting out or so.
Yeah, I just
I
ended up,
agree. I mean, the information's good, but I just think if it was made more clear that this really is not part of the thing that we're voting on, that it's just additional information to think about further on. That was my only thing, Scott. I appreciate the extra information as well.
okay, so we are now zooming through a couple of pages here because we've already discussed the Veterans Park.
We're going to 6A.
Yeah, 6A. This is the Madison Public Art Proposal. Jillian Talarczyk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, and Scott, did you want to have any comments to start?
Sure. Should I stop sharing, Scott? No? I'm good?
Can I share my screen? Is that possible?
Yep, let me stop, yep. Absolutely. Go ahead, Jillian.
Thank you. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Great. Did you want to say something, Scott, or should I go ahead?
Yep, go ahead, Jill.
Okay, perfect. So thank you to the commission for having me. My name is Jillian Talarczyk. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, the Madison Public Art Project. I bring 20 years of New York City art experience to this organization, born and raised in Madison. I'm in the Arbor Hills neighborhood, so of course I understand what a special place Fitchburg is. In the warmer months, you guys can find me playing tennis at the park and taking my niece and nephew to the splash pad, as well as enjoying all the wonderful restaurants in our city, especially the roasted chicken at the Thirsty Goat, which sounds really good right about now. I'm excited to be here today to go through the Wildflowers of Wisconsin public art proposal, which I believe to be a truly exciting program, not only for the residents and businesses of Fitchburg, but for the greater Madison area. I hope you all had a chance to read our project narrative included in the packet. I'd love to take time to do a Q&A at the end, and I wanted to give a big thank you to Angela Kinderman, President and CEO of the Fitchburg Chamber Visitor and Business Bureau, for your support. Hope you all had a chance to read her letter of support that was previously submitted. We're on a timeline to begin fundraising shortly, so it would be great to hold a vote tonight on this idea for our upcoming mural. I just wanted to take 1 minute to give a little bit of background on our most recent projects. This was the Flamingo Swirls mural that was completed in 2020. And I think it really speaks to the high caliber of work that we're doing. This one is at 701 East Johnson Street. We supported 4 local artists in that piece. Then we moved on in June of 2021 to commission the artist Molly Stentz, a local farmer and flower grower, We partnered with the Madison Public Library. This was unveiled June 6th. It was a 72-hour ephemeral installation, and it aligned with the weekend that the library reopened their services. So that was just during the time that people were emerging from the COVID-19 stay-at-home orders. Beautiful piece, both by day and by night. This is what it looked like if you were driving by or biking by. We unveiled, collaborating with the UW Arboretum, Canopy Understories, a biomimetic sculpture series, and unveiled this in 2 phases, one of which opened on Earth Day, and the other one which opened a few days ago. One of these installations highlights our state tree, the sugar maple, and the other illuminates after sunset. So I hope you all have a chance to visit these special pieces. Of course, the Arboretum is recognized globally for their research and educational excellence. So we're very excited to be partnering together with them this coming year. After that, we're moving on to Vibrant Hydrant. The RFP is currently active for this, and it calls for artists that have been historically underrepresented in the art world. We're really excited to see the submissions that will be coming through. This project supports diverse artists, prioritizes diversity, and will offer a collective remembrance to the events of 9/11. We're going to be holding a celebration working with the Monona Fire Department and the City of Monona, unveiling these 15 painted fire hydrants on 9/11. So we're here tonight to talk about the Wildflowers of Wisconsin. This is going to be a beautiful fiber art mural located in McKee Farms Park, temporary art installation. Ms. Burbach is an experienced fiber artist, and this work will be temporarily installed on a chain link fence in Fitchburg and will be on view for 1 year. The flower species included in this fiber art mural are all native to Wisconsin and will educate visitors about the indigenous histories of our state flora species. The artist will draw inspiration from the wildflowers indigenous to our Wisconsin landscape, and she will recreate and express this in a large-scale, site-specific fiber mural. The acrylic yarn palette will be hand-selected by the artist in a vibrant and uplifting expression. Here is an image of what we're looking at for that. It's an exciting fiber art mural that will for a time become part of the urban landscape. It will bring a smile to the visitors and will be in a surprising yet engaging setting while educating the public about the wildflowers. It has been documented that some of these flowers were used by indigenous inhabitants of North America for medicinal purposes. Ms. Burbach will also include information on the herbalism benefits and modern day uses of the wildflowers depicted. The project looks to learning lessons from the land and from our past. It promotes a sense of wonder for nature and honors our most treasured resource, the land. The installation is a collaborative and artistic way to showcase creativity and invite a fresh perspective to park visitors. Here is a current flower list that the artist is working with. In addition to these local flora, the wheat stalks that once covered what is now known as McKee Farms Park will be included in the design scheme as well. The Madison Public Art Project believes in connecting artists and local communities through public art. This is a dynamic project that will connect local neighborhoods, promote diversity, and as we host our Community Crochet Day. This is where we're going to be inviting the community into the process of crocheting their own flower that will then be placed into the larger design scheme. This installation will be large scale, around 15 feet by 10 feet, and will take many months to complete with all of the community support. McKee Farms Park is a dynamic and well-known park. It hosts many cultural experiences. The Bike the Berg Bucky from Bucky on Parade found his home here as well, with generous sponsorship from the Bureau. Other local events include Jazz at 5, concerts at McKee Park, Kids Building Wisconsin, and these attract hundreds of attendees. The community also hosts the nearby Agora Art Fair, which boasts many visitors to the area during that weekend, and the Art Barn, which is a nearby Fitchburg attraction. We know that the Wildflowers installation will have a wonderful temporary home in this park and will be enjoyed by thousands of visitors while it is on view during the year's time. Ms. Burbach likes to say that her work is made with yarn and with love, and she plans to include all of the information and herbalism benefits, as that is part of her wheelhouse and something that she's so excited to present. We're also looking at how plant medicine played an integral role in Indigenous traditions and giving offerings to prayers to the land as part of everyday life, looking to ceremonies and gatherings that were held, as well as plants, animals, and what provided food, shelter, and medicine from the Indigenous histories. The Parks Department will not be responsible for any funding towards this project. We'll be working with Angela, the Fitchburg Chamber Visitor and Business Bureau. We will be raising funding to pay the artist honoraria. All of our artists are paid, as well as materials for all of the community workshops and project materials. This project requires no additional maintenance from the Parks Department in terms of care and has no effect on the fence itself. It doesn't impact the tennis court play. And the Madison Public Art Project has board members and community volunteers that are excited to have a watchful eye on this fence. We'll also be holding repair days every 3 months. That's when the artist will be on site to fix any flowers that may have come loose. Our community crochet day is going to begin in early 2023. We'll be meeting outside in the parks during the warmer months and then inside during the colder winter months. The Wildflowers of Wisconsin is an exciting project where the creative spirit of Fitchburg will be enhanced through the artistic expression of the colorful flowers displayed throughout this installation. This dynamic project will connect local neighborhoods, promote social interaction, and will be inviting the community into the process. Important to note that, of course, this is a free, open to all, family-friendly activity within our community, something that's fun, that's free, and that's outdoors and COVID-19 safe. Of course, we believe that this is a prime example of placemaking, which helps to advance local, economic, physical, and social change, ultimately laying the groundwork for systems change through the lens of public art. We're excited to host a community celebration day. This, of course, will be pending the completion of the tennis courts and the new fence. And there will be some wonderful activities that we're planning, not only for kids, but also for adults, as well as I'll be hosting through group bike tours and art walking tours in collaboration with the artist and doing artist talks as well. Of course, the project touches on climate injustice and invites a fresh perspective to park visitors. We are going to be doing some really exciting children's activities, including a paint your own pollinator and coloring book pages. We're working on an inclusive children's activity guide as well. And we'll be placing a small project sign, which will also be zip tied metal engraved sign printed locally that will be an effective visual communication tool to convey this curated public art project and local sponsors. That is all I had. Are there any questions?
What part of the tennis court fence do you have in mind? This is 10 feet high, 15 feet wide. So do you have a section in mind?
Yeah, we did a site visit last week, and we did identify a part of the fence that's really perfect. It's sort of flanked by 2 trees. So as you're on the sidewalk looking to the tennis courts, it's towards the right side, which is also facing the sidewalk, facing traffic, and on the side where residents would be entering the park. So
Okay,
we feel like that's a really high visibility
Okay, that's the fence on the north side of the tennis courts.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Okay, and there are street lights along there, so that should be lit up at night?
There are.
Okay,
yes.
good.
Any other questions?
Maybe just one thought that if all goes well with the capital improvement plan, we're looking to potentially do some maintenance and work at the McKee Farms Park tennis courts and the fence, and that would take place in 2023. So their idea of having the project in 2024 would work with our schedule. So just another bit of information.
Yeah, another.
An important bit.
Are you, it says an unveiling or something like that in May of 2024. Is this to be installed like early May 2024 or April 2024?
April is really tough
Okay.
because of the weather in Wisconsin.
Somewhere
So
in there. I mean, I don't know when your exact opening day in May would be. You know, if it's May 1st, then you'd be installing in April. But
this is probably a 1 to 2 day install. So we would be flexible, of course, with the parks, and we're looking at mid to end of May, if that would work with the schedule.
okay, if there's anything like this year, the end of May sounds better than like right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it does sound like the timing works out good because the fence repair is planned, apparently, it says may not occur till 2023, but the fence repair is just going up and pounding the post down about 6 to 12 inches, right? So it shouldn't interfere, but the timing sounds fine anyway.
We still need to receive the funding for it, so that's the CIP process that's coming up shortly.
You're still anticipating 2023 fence repair, though? You're not sure?
We'll find
We
out.
don't have funding for fence repair there. It's all part of the McKee tennis court renovation and fence repair is all
Right.
one project.
So even in the worst case, if you were repairing the fence, all you got to do is pound the fence posts down. That's not going to affect this art project, even if it was after the art is installed, correct?
I don't know the method that we'll use in order to repair the fence at this point.
Okay.
Anything else?
No question, but just sounds like a very cool project that I think Fitchburg would be excited to have.
Thank you.
I agree. Okay, so Scott, you would like us to vote in the affirmative?
I think, yep.
Yeah.
And actually, the group, I think Jillian and her group would like to have an assurance so they can begin to start to fundraise and those kinds of things.
Right, okay. So we need a motion. It's not spelled out for me.
I'll move
to you.
approval.
You move approval of the installation of the Madison Public Art proposal. Is there a
Sure.
second?
Yes.
Second.
I'll second. Oh, sorry.
Well, Heidi, you get this one.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jillian.
Approved.
Awesome. Thank you.
Let me ask one question here to Scott. This is entirely different than, I think it was a Dane County Arts project that was going to put some artwork in a bike path underpass on, I think it's either Spoke or Sprocket, whichever it is. That was a whole different group, right? No, they never did because as soon as the primer was put on the tunnel walls, it got tagged.
Okay. Well, this will be better. It's hard to tag crocheting, we hope.
Exactly.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
thank you so
probably.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now advancing to, make sure I've got my pages in order. We're going past the scouts. We are at Wade Thompson's update to us of the North Fish Hatchery Road Hub 1 update.
Hello, Park Commission. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to update on here. I think the commission is very familiar with the project. We've, literally been at this for a couple of years now. I did want to report that we did present last Wednesday to our council as a committee of the whole to kind of just give them, again, just one last kick at the cat in terms of questions and comments. They will be voting this Tuesday in terms of approving a final design. So yeah, I would encourage, Parks Commission to attend or certainly watch that meeting if you're interested. And then if folks want me to touch on what the presentation entailed last week, I can certainly do that. And I guess from a staff perspective, everyone knows what the hub is, and we just try to focus more on why it's important. And again, I think, staff's commitment, your commitment in the past 2-3 years, really reflects that importance. So with that, I can certainly take any questions or comments on the presentation or kind of next steps in the next week plus or beyond.
I have a question because my memory is good, but it's short. When the ice rink was discussed, was that correct? Am I remembering correctly that as the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative was discussing this project for several years, the ice rink was sort of an addition after the fact or way towards the end of all the process?
Correct. So our first step was a concept design. And that was completed, I'm losing track of dates and years, but a while back. And the ice rink was not included in that concept. I think as we move towards final design and we started to better understand the impact that the hub could have on the neighborhood and the community, we wanted to think about making that space a year-round usable facility. And obviously in Wisconsin, we've got a long winter. So we did bring in an ice rink concept as part of this final design. But you're right, it was not in the initial concept, that we started some years back.
Yeah, so it was just the last few months, I think. I recall that we talked about it.
Probably, yeah, maybe 6 to 9 months.
Oh,
something like
okay.
that. Yeah.
All right. Any, Patrick?
And then the Healthy Neighborhoods Committee and then the Park Commission here did make changes in the choice of the full covered court roof, I think you call it, or something like that, and no ice rink. Did any other committee see it after us, and is there any other changes after us?
Nope, you're correct. You and the H&I committee had the same recommendation, basically, as designed with a fully covered hard court, but no ice rink. And then you guys and H&I committee was the only committees it was referred to, so no one else has weighed in on it. I guess it will go to Finance Committee prior to Council next Tuesday, so they will weigh in on it as well.
Okay, so it is referred to them as well.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
they get one shot at it, and then it goes straight to council.
Yeah, pretty much anytime we spend money, the
Yeah.
Finance Committee will weigh in on it, so yep.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any. All right, so this is update only, correct, Scott?
Correct.
All right, so then Wade will now describe the Terra Vesa Ag Park design update. And Scott, is there anything you want to say, or is this handing straight?
Well, and maybe just a lead up to it, and certainly I wanted to thank Wade. Wade was the one who facilitated the RFP, and then we did have, we had 2 proposals that we did receive. Wade and Philip Groupie and myself were on the interview panel. And actually, the RFP did allow for full proposals, which included both the outreach and the design. But then different groups could bid on specific pieces of the RFP. We did receive one full proposal from MOS, or
EOR.
MOS, EOR, and then we did receive a partial proposal from Rooted, which was a group that's really heavy into the scene, and they gave us a proposal on outreach. So from that, maybe Wade, you could kind of take it a little bit about the process and what we're recommending, and then I'll follow up and finish up with the budget amount.
Yeah, so as Scott mentioned, we had two proposals. We did allow for what we call partial proposals. So EOR did submit a full proposal, meaning community engagement, and then planning, design, and construction type documents. And then Rooted was our other group, as Scott mentioned. Rooted is, I don't know if folks are familiar with them, but essentially what I would call a local food system group. They've been established in the region for years. They're all about community gardens. They're all about the local food system. They do have experience in helping the county kind of plan some of their ag parks. So we really felt, again, with the uniqueness of this park project, with EOR's kind of design build experience, and with Rooted's more strict community engagement experience, as well as their being integrated kind of into the local food scene regionally, we felt like combining those two proposals would really serve the city well. And we did check in with EOR and Rooted to confirm that they would want to proceed in that manner, and both said yes. So I guess we're here tonight, Scott, to kind of run that by the Parks Commission and ask for approval for next steps. Is that the idea? Or?
That's correct. And if you recall, the original RFP had a budget of $20,000. So both of the proposals that we did receive was under that 20. But if we combine, as staff is recommending here, we're looking to raise that budget to 24,000, from 20 to 24.
And if I could just make one more point on that, I think obviously when we plan facilities, we want to make sure we can manage them. They're planned in a way that we can manage them, whether it's us or a third party. And I think what Rooted brings as well is that potential management capacity. They really, again, they actually manage all of the community gardens in City of Madison parks. So again, obviously we're in the planning stage now, and they have expertise in engaging, but I think having them on board when we talk about next steps in terms of management and operations, I think having them in at the first step here is a really prudent approach that, again, I think would serve the city well. So,
Julia.
Yes, the question is, has the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee seen this park? Because it would be great for them,
Yep.
to have also support from that commission too.
Yep, no, that's a great point. So actually, I serve as a liaison to that committee as well. I haven't met with them in a couple months, and I probably won't meet with them before I leave, but I did mention, I think at our last meeting, or maybe a couple of meetings ago, about this idea. And I totally agree. I think they could really bring some expertise to this, the park as well. When we talk about maybe some historical farm machinery or just things that'll kind of, spruce up that park and really give it an identity. I think that's where that committee could come in. So yeah, they will be engaged throughout the process.
Any other remarks or questions?
I would just say that I think I would agree with Wade that bringing on a group that has really specific expertise in something like this, and both establishing it and then maintaining it and operating it, is probably pretty vital to its success. So if that means we have to spend a little bit more money to get that, I think for the long-term success of this park, it's probably worthwhile.
Okay. Nothing else? Okay. So we need to vote, I'm looking for a motion to approve the Terra Vista Ag Park design
with the idea that we're going to have a combined,
yeah.
combined team, and then the budget will be 24,000.
Okay. What he said.
I move that.
Sarah, second. Sarah's got a question.
Sorry,
Go right
just a
ahead.
quick question. Will this come back to us again with more insight?
Yeah, I can chime in, Scott. So I think what'll happen is, now that if we get to go ahead, we'll connect back with our consultants or proposed consultants. We'll prepare a contract, a draft contract, and then that'll go through the referral process. So it'll come back to you guys, probably maybe the Ag Committee, just to get them looped in. And, we'll include the proposals. You'll see all that stuff. And then, you'll either, I guess, recommend approval of the contract or maybe approval with modifications or whatever it might be. So you will see it again. Yep.
Okay, but that 24 feels pretty confident that no matter what.
Yeah, Scott, I thought we might have talked 24.5. I can't remember what was ultimately decided, but
That sounds good.
Okay. Sorry, I'll second. I agree with combining them. I just wanted to, I was a little confused on that.
And so to be clear then, it's increasing it from 20,000 to 24,500.
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Those in favor? Oh,
Okay.
stop again.
One question, Wade. Since you are leaving sometime in May, as you announced to us, I met our brand-new Zach, I think his name is, planning associate in the planning department. Is he taking over for this and other projects from what you've been working on?
probably not. So just so folks know, my last day will be a week from today, Thursday. We have a new city planner as well, my supervisor, and I've been in discussions with her about my replacement. She's working on that. It probably will be a couple of months till my replacement is on board, but we're kind of setting up a transition plan, so these projects will keep moving. There shouldn't be any, lag in any of them, so we'll keep them moving. Yep.
Your supervisor, is that Deanna Schmidt, is that her name?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, and Zach is that his right name, planning associate?
Yep, Zach Jones. I think it's actually associate planner, but so Zach handles
Associate,
more
okay.
of the, I would say, development review, site planning, more of the zoning type stuff. So certainly he, as he gets experience here, maybe he'll expand kind of some of his projects, but as of now, he'll probably not be involved with this project.
He has a different emphasis in his work than you have been working on.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
I see.
All right, thank you. So at this point, those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This passes. Motion passes.
I have a question here. How do we know from this discussion/action of which ones we're supposed to vote on and which ones not? We just kind of do it on the fly along the way, or what? Or whatever Scott says at the moment?
You want to take that, Scott?
Scott was
He's
busy
focused on
reading.
something else.
Well, it's kind of, yeah, it is kind of on the fly if you really, the action items are kind of resolutions and things that are referred to us. These items are discussion, some action. So we just have to have a little flexibility to,
Right.
some of them need official action or do you
that's-
want another category of agendas?
No, I'm just wondering how we and you are deciding which one of these
We're
discussions
deciding
slash
it
action. This was the
collaboratively.
middle category. Yes, obviously, the, whatever it was.
Oh, all right.
Action items we vote on, this maybe not, and then communication is no voting on those.
Yeah,
So this is a middle area.
all right.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We are on item F. E, thank you. That's why Wade is still here.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Again, a real brief update. And I guess just generally speaking, I want to apologize for not, moving quicker on the open or the plan update. Obviously, just a lot going on, and we haven't had time to focus on it. But we are, I think, in pretty good shape, to get this thing updated. So I just want to quickly give the commission a kind of where we've been, where we're going. So yeah, we did have, a public meeting. This was actually, I'm losing track now, but maybe late last year, fall of last year. And then we did have those various work sessions with this body. I think we had 3 work sessions. And then, in terms of moving forward, I guess in talking with Scott, I will be gone, but a goal would be to get that plan, get a draft plan completed by, let's say, July, and then take it to this body and then take it to other relevant committees just for their kind of, again, one last kick at the cat kind of thing. And I do want to point out that, again, it's a 3-section plan. 2 sections are done. We got our executive summary done, which you've not yet seen, but it's pretty, not a whole lot going on there. And then the action items, which we spent a lot of time talking through, those have also been completed. So really now it's just the section 2, which is essentially an inventory of our system. And I'm going to do my best to have that done before I leave, but there'll probably be a few maps and just other data points that I won't get to before I leave. So that'll be a little bit of work for Scott or whoever. And then again, assuming we get that plan done mid-June, we'll go to those committees. We'll come back to you. And then I think it makes sense to have another public meeting in August just to kind of present the draft. And then we'll start the referral process. So basically, get it to council, kick it back to committees, and then, ultimately go for approval probably sometime early fall of this year. So with that, again, can certainly take any questions or comments that the group might have.
Julia?
Yes, wait, who is going to be in charge of this plan when you are, after you are gone from the city? Is it Scott or the planning department or?
Yeah, I think Scott would be kind of the lead on it. Again, the writing of the plan will be basically done. So it'll just be the process of holding public meetings and kind of getting it through referral. Again, I don't want to hold my department to this, but I think the hope is to get my replacement on board in, let's say, July or August. So again, that new person would be, kind of at the tail end of this, so that they could certainly provide support. But I think until that person is on, Scott would be the lead.
Any other questions? Are you wanting a vote, Scott?
Thanks, Wade. No action on this one.
Wade, thank you so
Just
much
discussion.
for all your work that you've done on this, and we'll miss you.
Well,
No, this will be
and-
our last Parks Commission. So yeah, enjoyed working with you all, and hopefully our paths will cross again, professionally or otherwise. So thank you.
Sarah, did you have a comment, or everyone's just waving goodbye on their screens?
Just waving goodbye, sorry. Best wishes, Wade.
Okay, all right. Item F, Stoner Prairie Park Design Concepts. Scott.
Now this, just to give a preface to this, we're just beginning to start to gather comments and all those kinds of things. It may take a couple meetings to get to a final design. Then once we do get to a final concept, if you would, then I'll take that out to the public to gather their comments and feedback, and then we'll come back to the Park Commission and then get it approved. So, we're really trying to gather some feedback and some information, and I can share that back with EOR, and then they can make some adjustments, and then we'll come back again. Maybe just as a bit of a preface, what we did have to do is we had to phase the development or the implementation due to funding. If you recall, Crescent, what's that? Oh, I gotta switch to share now? Well, where is that? I don't see it on here. Share screens. Oh, there it is. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Carol's starting to share. This is new technology for me. So yeah, just a preface that with the funding that we have, we did have to do a phase 1 and a phase 2. And actually EOR did include in there the information, the idea of the budget for phase 1 build out, along with phase 1 or concept 1, phase 1, concept 1, total build out. And then actually we had another concept, which has about the same amenities and things. But what I did want to call attention to was this budget information. If you recall, and you can kind of see the funding sources that I have listed here for Stoner Prairie.
116?
116.
Got it, okay.
116.
Making my way there.
You know, and I think it's important that we realize what the funding is. For Stoner Prairie, we've got $44,050 in Fund 202. Fund 203 is $30,627, and then Fund 203 for Stoner Prairie is $138 for a total of $213,000 is what we actually have to develop this park. But understand that Crescent Crossing has a total of $567,580, and when it was a private park, we were to receive all of that. But now with it becoming a public park, there's going to be some park improvement dollars that they're going to be utilizing, or we're going to be utilizing, in order to develop the park. So at the end of the day, I'm estimating that we may have about $375,000 to build this park. So that's why we went from a total build out to a phase 1 and a phase 2 for both of these concepts. So is there any questions about that?
Yes, Julia.
Yeah, so can you explain what are the difference between, because we have two options here, you know, we have, I think, concept 1, and then with
And
phase
concept?
1 and concept 2, what are the big difference between the two?
Well, and we can go through that, so everyone's understanding why we have to phase it in regards to the funding.
You know, could I stop just 1 second? Because I didn't ask Alder Wielder if he would like to speak now. You registered to speak and I didn't recognize you. Is there something, we should do that first before we start launching into 1,000 questions?
It'd be really quick.
Well, take as long as you like. You've been
patient.
waiting for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jim Wheeler, I'm Alder for District 4, but I'm kind of just asking a question for anyone. Is there any consideration for additional equipment for those that are older than 12 in this park? Has there been some consideration for that? I see on there it basically says from age 5 to 12.
Oh, the play
Play,
equipment.
What type of equipment are you? I know in some of the survey results there was a zip line kind of thing, and actually the person who recommended that gave me a call and says, well, you know what? There's really not that many of those kids in the area, so it might not be a good idea to spend money on that type of amenity. So.
Okay.
Was there something else, though, that you thought about in that age range that you wanted to recommend?
No, not at all. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't missed, that it was just considered that, older kids being there. I know we got the basketball courts and everything else, softball, but if there's any other equipment that, I don't know. You're the expert, so I'll leave it up to you.
I did want to comment too, Mr. Wheeler, that the comment that you provided in regards to the location of the playground, someone else did bring that up also, so we'll share that with the group when we begin to start to look at the concepts.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Julia. Thank you. We should have had you step in way at the beginning. But, all right. Thanks for coming.
Have you considered, I think, because we know that the budget that we have for this park is not going to cover all the even in phase one, to be honest with you.
I would.
Have you included this park in the CIP?
It's already included
In the
it's already
CIP?
included in there, yeah.
For additional expenses that we need to have?
No, I didn't, not for any additional dollars.
Oh, okay.
So the dollars that we had to develop it
It's a replacement fund.
comes from the development, right.
So that was why even though we didn't vote on we only voted on a map for the dog park, et cetera, that financial sheet in there is telling us we're taking a major hit financially via what has occurred.
Because they're making those lands public.
Right. It's out of our control. It's just, I want to ask a quick preface question, and I have a lot of other ideas and comments, as some of you might imagine, having been in part of the ad hoc group. But why, since we know we have far fewer dollars, why would we not first plan the shelter restroom? And going along with that, part of your answer might have to do with whether Public Works is ready to tell us what they're going to build and what their dollar contribution is to the whole thing. Is it just too many unknowns? Because otherwise, I fear we spend too much on the amenities and never have enough for restrooms, which I have heard from a number of alders over time. They kind of look at me and say, you will be built, there's an expectation that, and not just alders, it's unfair to just lay this on any alder, but there's an expectation that this is the opportunity for restrooms. And it doesn't have to be the fanciest shelter, but that we do have to plan for those. So that was a long question, but you tell me.
Well, in fairness, what's happening with the lift there, the well, is they're still in the process of doing the design. And in talking to Tracy, she feels that she could include within the design the capabilities to build a bathroom, if you would. I just think at the end of the day, this is a neighborhood park for the Stoner Prairie neighborhood, and they've provided the dollars. A bathroom really becomes more of an area park amenity, which is in the future. So I don't know if it would be advisable to spend all the money that we have to build a bathroom and a shelter, and then not have have dollars to build their neighborhood park, if you would.
It's an area park that we planned for.
But it still needs to, it's a neighborhood park that will function as an area park if we put in bathrooms and those kinds of things.
Right, but it is an area park. It's not a neighborhood park. It's an area park, and it addresses more than just the Stoner Prairie neighborhood.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
My biggest comment here and concern is the budget for this park is very, very limited. You say that we have only $330,000, or maybe we are optimists. We suppose that we have $400,000. So I think what we need to do is we need to say what we can do with $400,000. You know what I mean?
And that's
I know that we should have the restroom and the shelter, but they're going to cost $100,000. Those they're going to cost. You know what I mean? So I think we need to determine what we can do with $400,000 in this park first. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, and basically that's when EOR put the budget together, that's what I indicated. I says we total build out, if you look at the concept one, a total build out, which includes the bathrooms and all of that, is $429,000. So that's phase one and phase two. Phase one, or concept one, phase one, for the, would cost $377,000. So that's what we can build with the $400,000 that we have, which is phase one. And then if you look at at concept one, this one, in the pink, if you would, that's phase one of concept one. They've estimated that it would be $377,000 to build that out. If you would build the whole thing, phase one and phase two, which includes the bathroom facility, that's $729,000, which we don't have. So if you go then to concept two, we kind of did the same thing, where the pink area, phase one and concept two would be $388,000. But then if you build the whole thing out, then it would be $729,000. So that was really the strategy to try and phase it, if you would, depending on the dollars that we have allocated.
Chris, go ahead.
Is there still, I know the well house is still being designed, is there still, do you know what their timeline is?
Well, they did tell me that it was going to be designed this year and built next year. I don't know the reality of that, Chris, but in talking to Tracy, she's really interested in having a bathroom as part of that facility, and the idea to design it so that if we needed to in a couple years later, we could, open up the bathrooms to the public and then put a shelter or whatever it might be adjacent to that building. But
And is there still cost savings to that by taking advantage of that building?
certainly. They're bringing the well, the water. We just basically build in the bathroom and then the shelter. We don't have to bring all those other amenities to it.
Sort of what I thought. So before we dive into the design, does EOR, do the designers plan to present these to us in a way or walk us through?
I was going to do that for them to save a meeting for them, right?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Are you saying, Scott, that the well house could be built at one point and depending on budget and funds available, we may add the restrooms onto it later? It would be built to accommodate a later addition of restrooms?
Correct. And the way it sounds is it sounds like Tracy would design that building to include bathrooms, because that's typically what they're doing with their new well houses, is they like to place bathrooms in them. So I think we gain we gain budget there.
Right. Is there any similarities here? What kind of a well is this? Is this a drilled well, or is this one of these water valve things in there? You don't know? Okay. Is there any similarities to the Hugel Jamestown, which is water control valves and then with restrooms attached in the same building?
Hugel Jamestown is more of a lift. It's a pressurized system.
Yeah, it's a water control thing, essentially valves or something like that. It's not a drilled well. It's not a water tank.
No.
It's water control from Madison that goes into that area.
Correct.
But otherwise, we do have the same thing of Public Works well house for whatever they're doing in there, and then restrooms attached.
Correct. So
That's essentially what this is
they
going
got to build a well, they got to get power there and do all of those kinds of things. So we would just kind of be an add-on to that infrastructure.
And is that what's leading to this being in the phase two part?
The cost.
Yeah.
Well, it's
the
a
cost plus they're building this thing later.
Yeah.
So I mean, we can't build restrooms before there's the well building there.
And we don't have the money in order to participate in that.
This kind of sounds like we either spend most or pretty much all of the money on phase one, and then we got to find the rest for phase two, or else we build phase two first, use up all the money, and then we got to find money for phase one.
I think if I'm living in the neighborhood,
either half takes all the money.
Yeah.
I would suspect that they would prefer their Stoner Prairie Park improvement fees go to building a park. They wouldn't be going to building bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Personally,
Go ahead, Chris.
I think I agree. I think the restrooms and shelter building was pretty high on their priority list. I think it was almost universal. That was something they wanted, if I'm remembering the surveys and everything right, and it's been a long time, so I might not be. But yeah, I think that if we build them a bathroom but no park to go with it, that, you know, that might raise some eyebrows. But I think being able to look at both phases combined and the ultimate, you know, look at the price tag at the end, we really almost have to pursue the option of building, you know, on the restrooms onto the well house. It's probably hundreds of thousands of dollars difference we're talking about. So, you know, in that regard, I feel like we almost need to rule out concept 2, not that we can't rob parts from it, but the overarching feel of that shelter within the park itself and not taking advantage of the well house. I don't know. That might be a non-starter.
And again, I think the exercise is going to be, you know, kind of grabbing the bits and pieces from each of the, into Alder Wheeler's point, which if we just take a look at concept 2, the idea of, you know, going from right to left, the existing playground is in this area, and we're looking to move it a little bit to the, north and south? Yep, so we'd be moving it to the west, but Mr. Wheeler's thought, which others have said, what about moving the playground over here so it's kind of part of, all of the activities, you know, so I think that potentially is an option.
I have, and I agree with that, and I wrote down a couple of other reasons, because I have a good memory, but it's short, of why that would be good. I mean, you have people who might reserve the shelter, whether it's what we see there on any iteration. If they reserve a shelter for a summer party, I don't know if they want to have the shelter next to a basketball court, but they'd rather have it next to the playground. Because, you know, a summer party, you're assuming you're going to have some kids there. So having the play equipment closer to where that is, and the restrooms, and you want the shelter near the restrooms, you want the play equipment there, and people playing basketball can walk a little further if they need a restroom. That's my thought.
And maybe what I can do here is let's just run through each of the different.
Yeah, I'm getting ahead, I'm sure.
Kind of have an idea of what each of the concepts are, and
Yep.
and then the pieces that are included in each of them. So if you're looking at concept 1, you know, you're starting at the, you know, where the existing playground is.
You're on page 110? 113.
110. 110. So you've got, you know, an age 2 to 5, age 5 to 12 play space, Rob wanted to make sure that we understood that we weren't going to be removing any of the trees, that we were going to be working around the trees. But it does have a small shade structure, you know, extending walking path. We tried to provide some pollinator habitats kind of thing. And then you go into, you know, the open play area. There is an informational gathering place as you continue to go to the west. Then we do have the basketball court.
Can you tell me what is the informational gathering space? What is that?
Well, that's just like, informal, I'm sorry, informal.
Oh, okay. You go there to gather information.
This
Okay.
is the information gathering
Okay.
place. That's an informal gathering place.
Now I get it. Okay, thank you.
And then the basketball court. And then, you know, if you go on the east side, there is a node, you know, a seating parking area. But please note with this one that they eliminated the ball diamond, so it becomes all green space. And again, they did some pollinator restoration prairie landscapes around the area. And actually Anna Healy did provide some comments, and she really is thinking that we're trying to get to our canopy cover. So the idea of, maybe more trees instead of pollinator areas, and then maybe we concentrate, because the pollinator areas, they do take maintenance and those kinds of things, so there needs to be a reality of that, so it might maybe be one more, just one specific spot, if you would. Really the idea of trying to screen, certainly within the playgrounds, that there's visibility for parents from the road and those kinds of things, but trying to screen with pollinator areas or other things, the activity areas from the neighborhood is really kind of the idea of concept one. And then if we go.
Wait, okay, I finally found it, because you just, for the clarity, point out the informal gathering space with your mouse. It's at the, yeah, that one.
Yep,
Okay.
informal gathering.
And then
space.
at the very top, the pointy thing up at the top there with the rows of 4 trees, is that a particular feature?
Well, you can see that there's a path. There's actually the dotted lines are an existing path that are there, so that would be an entry into the open space there.
Okay, and I see that for some reason, well, it's a different treatment of that in phase 2, in concept 2.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And that was really what he tried to do, is he tried to provide different variations of the different concepts. And like I say, you can mix and match or move some things around or whatever you
Okay, go ahead.
like. So then, are we good with?
I just,
Yep, go ahead.
where the node, seating and bike parking, if we're not gonna have a baseball field, and as I hear you say, we can make combinations of
Yep.
but what would you be sitting there for? Right there, the way it's designed.
Well, it might be a place to just gather.
Just to sit and chat.
Sit and
It's
chat.
not
and,
like,
and at some point, the idea of a circular system within this, that they might go around once or twice, and it's a mile or whatever, so they might, sit down and
rest.
just
Okay,
kind of
got it.
take in the atmosphere, if you would.
Okay,
So we kind of get the idea with that one. Then if we go to concept 2, what Rob did is he moved the playground. I would classify it more central, but certainly, as Mr. Wheeler and someone else indicated, the idea of maybe doing the playground adjacent to the covered shelter structure might be an option. But again, what he did here is he kind of used the existing playground. He's got an exercise equipment, so there could be like a little bit of an exercise circuit there, if you would. Again, it kind of borders with pollinators, and actually we've got an urban orchard that they've included in there, which I think Anna and Sue has some additional comments or thoughts about that. It does look like there's more of an interior path with this one. Again, the dotted purple, I think they're purple, that's the existing blacktop, path that kind of goes around the park. But this might be a little bit of an interior connection to the shelter, if you would. And then this one, they maintain the ball diamond. And actually on the southern end, the north-south, we're creating that path, actually a path that would create a loop, which would do a couple things. It would create that loop, but then provide that delineation between the school property and the city property. So I guess it's really open for thoughts and comments on what, one other comment that I did receive, they were wondering about path lighting.
Yeah.
Where path lighting is. And that we didn't include the path lighting because that's another expense. But that certainly is something that we could, maybe a portion of it could be lit or something like that. I know that was another item that was brought up. Maybe just the east-west connection or or whatever it might be.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a lot of questions about this. You know, first of all, I don't feel comfortable with this number. I think they're very optimistic. You know, in the sense that they are, you know, I think that some of this expenditure costs more than what is here, okay? And we need to, if we are gonna build this park next year, because I don't think we are gonna build it this year.
Well, it's going to take a while, yeah.
So we need to allocate some inflation adjustment or some construction cost increases and all of that.
Well, and again, Julia, I defer to EOR. They're the ones that we hired to provide these estimates and things like that. But certainly we can put an escalator in there if we need.
Because we are already working with the hub, and we see the number of the hub and the other parks, and you know, you start comparing, even with the inclusive playground, how much it costs to do the surface, how much is the bench, how much is the concrete around the, you know what I mean?
Well,
So,
and you know, and I don't mean to, but I think that these are the estimates that are what it costs currently. So I think.
So, but I'm gonna take this estimate with very, very cautious about this, because I think they are in the very, very low end of the
and I
scale,
think,
okay?
and once we come up with that final concept, we'll ask for an additional, you know, another budget estimate and go from there, I guess.
So one of my other questions that you mentioned, it was, I put light. We need to have some light. Even if you're gonna build support like a basketball court, you know, you need to have some light around that so people can play even in winter time when it's 5 o'clock, it's dark, but it still is nice to be outside. You need to have some light, you know what I mean? And also my other comments are, do we need to, because we are gonna maintain this humongous parcel, so we need to think about how we can be more environmental friendly, and maybe we can convert part of this in a prairie.
In the prairie?
Yeah, because who's gonna maintain that? We need to cut the grass, we need to maintain this, you know? So I think, how we can maintain a part of, I will, you know, me preferably, my personal opinion, maybe we should allocate some area and we convert some prairie, you know what I mean?
Well, you notice that there are restored prairie and pollinator areas, so we are trying to provide those areas, right?
Yeah, I was looking for a bigger area, but you know.
A bigger one?
But the other thing is, I think we need to start working on this, all of us, is okay, so this is our supposed budget. What are the things that we can do in a park right now? You know, I know this will be great to have a shade structure, but the shade structure is gonna cost half of the budget or more, what we have here. You know, and so what are the amenities that we need to have in the park that they can start being, this parcel can start being feel like a park, and then eventually we can add more stuff, you know what I mean? But,
and again, I guess I gotta defer to EOR that they have a line item for each of the budgets that they've included in phase one of their, you know, I guess they provided those budget estimates for us, so. And with those estimates, we would have enough budget to do, you know, phase one and concept one and phase one and concept two, as they've got them identified here.
Patrick?
The well house restroom building, that of course is in the same place in either one of these concepts. And in either version, it is only the well house, whatever Public Works is doing with it in there, and then restrooms. There's no open roof area or anything, or glass room area like Hugel Jamestown, like McGaw-McKee. So in other words, it's not reservable, rentable, no revenue off of that.
I think it's a space that could be reservable.
For what? For restrooms?
Well, you'd have to build, right, you'd have to build an open air,
Yeah, but that's what I'm getting at, is this, as we're looking at it here, is just the well house part, which is, of course, not anything of ours, and then restrooms. Even Swan Creek has, you know, an open roof area, and so that's reservable. But this here, as I am looking at it, is just the restrooms added onto the well house. That's not something to reserve and rent.
I think they're accounting for that, Patrick. I just see their little note on the side. It says pedestrian plaza, covered space. So I think the graphic maybe doesn't represent it, but in the text, I think that's what they were imagining. Similar to what you're describing.
Right, well, in one of the two, it's the more elaborate.
Concept one.
Concept one is the more elaborate. When we thought we had more money, when we were doing the original planning, those were ideas that were presented. And then the other one just shows the well house, and,
With restrooms.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's it, yeah.
And then with that concept, then it did covered shelter structure, which could be reserved,
Right.
so
Okay.
they're separated.
Yeah, it's just that they're not
Right.
attached to each other,
One
but you still
concept
have a
they are,
rentable.
and the second concept they aren't.
Yeah.
Well, and you're right, and it is, that would be phase two also in concept two.
The covered
The
shelter
covered
structure.
structure, right, right.
Can I make my?
Go ahead.
I need to make my final comment because maybe I need to go soon. So this is what I think. In phase one, if I had to design this park, I will say we need to have like a playground equipment for sure. We need to have some, some landscaping, a couple of benches, a soccer field, and a basketball court. I think this is the three things that we can start working on. Because then you have kids that they can play soccer. It's a nice area to have a soccer field there. You can put a basketball court. They can play basketball there. We can even have the basketball court with marking as what is those play? Pickleball? I don't know. And then we have a nice playground.
Would you, where would be the location of the playground? Would it be in concept two or concept one? What would be your preferred location of the playground?
Or my suggestion of a different location along the path, close to where the restrooms will be.
That could be another location,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think it could be where that light blue, where the shelter, that area, we can.
Yep, that was one thought.
Yeah.
Is there a concern that the neighbors who have a playground here and it's moved over here, that they're gonna wonder where their playground went?
They have more play equipment across the fence at the elementary school
But that's,
than many of our other parks combined.
Exactly.
So they won't, it'll be nicer.
and that's where I thought the playground kind of here would be a little bit more central, but I certainly understand the idea of placing the playground. And again, what we'll do is we'll take the concept out to the neighborhood and see.
I would say that playground is not going to be an issue compared to having a dog park behind your backyard. So, you know what I mean? So,
Is everybody kind of in agreement that you'd like the playground maybe in this active area?
There, generally, what I had thought originally is if you looked along that east-west path that cuts through the center of the park,
Yeah.
even more central, or just center towards, like if you were
Yeah.
out in the outfield, beyond the outfield, but north of the park, north of the path, sort of where the basketball is. It doesn't have to be jammed in that little angular part on the other side of the shelter, but sort of there.
we can move the basketball court to
Well, and
the
if
east, portion,
and
the
if you
higher
look-
portion there.
Well, and if you look in not to, if you look at the location of the basketball court in the other phase, the basketball court is more over here. So the idea of the playground, you're thinking more in this area, right?
Yeah.
That's very helpful, because that's.
Yeah. That's my opinion, and I hope
And that's really
Will
what,
others chime in, please?
well, that's,
Yeah, no,
well,
I like that, but I will move, instead of, because I want the basketball court is gonna be
oh, Katie's got her hand up.
on phase 2, in that area where we have the people playing. What is it they play? Frisbee?
Ultimate Frisbee?
Ultimate Frisbee.
So we cannot, I think we need to keep that area kind of for that group. But I think I will move the basketball court to where we plan the original playground, in that corner over there, the square.
Over here?
Yeah.
No, that's the forested area that Anna wanted.
Oh, okay.
But here, I have and I know Katie wants to mention that, my thought about the basketball is, move it east, all the way over east, but on the north side of the path.
Over in
So
here?
you could do that as an idea, and the only reason I thought of that is that it moves it away from any particular group of homes. Yes, I understand people buy homes near parks and they have to appreciate the sounds of the park. At the same time, if it's all the same to the rest of us, they'll appreciate not having the basketball bouncing outside their window a lot. And Katie, please proceed.
Julia, do you have any other comments if you need to go?
No, I'm gonna wait. No, you can.
I mean, I had a couple of questions too between the two concepts. I agree that I'm not thrilled with the playground being separated off to the eastern side. Scott, is there a reason that they kept that existing east-west path through the middle of the park?
It's there. There's
I know it's there.
Yeah,
I said, is there a reason they kept it?
Oh, are you thinking
Is that where that pathway should be?
Well, that's where it is.
It is where it is, but is it where it should be?
Well, yeah, you fire out your thoughts, Katie.
So that is one of my first questions. Is that where we truly want that path to be? Because it affects a lot of how we're laying out this park. At the same time, I know that the Ultimate Frisbee groups are a heavy user of this park, and I think that maintaining the open space on the southern portion and keeping it contiguous with the school property to offer more flexibility because they can fit more fields in. I think there is a lot to be said for that. It is a large user group, and it is an age group that brings home buyers into our neighborhoods, which I think there's a lot, that there's good things to encourage that group to stay at this park. I have another question, Scott, for you. Long-term, how does this pathway connect, how does the multi-use trail connect to the Badger State Trail to the west? Because I know we have little bits and pieces of connectors, but where is the true connection point? And I guess I don't know if that makes sense, right? Because to the south, we have a piece that goes from the school property that kind of weaves its way through Crescent Crossing.
Yep.
Otherwise, we have the east-west path here that goes up and crosses just north of where that future well house is, but then it goes away. So where's the true connection point through here to the Badger State Trail?
Well, any of those east-west paths that we have, I guess I don't know what you're asking, Katie.
The section that's north of the future well house doesn't go anywhere. It stops.
This one right here?
Yeah, where does that go?
You cannot, really, because it either, if you're on that Velt Drive, I think then that just curves back up around and you're making you're swinging back
right.
up.
So this is a major park that is the closest thing to the Badger State Trail. So I want to be sure that as we look at the overall trail connection system, right? We're making the movements to get either from that major trail corridor to this park and back and forth, right? Because we've got a major north-south corridor that extends up right where it says Scarlet Drive on there.
So how does that affect what we do?
How do people bike down the one and get to the other? Where is that sensible movement so that we make sure that that is maintained through this park?
Can I ask a question to her?
What do you suggest, Katie?
Can we send this to the bike committee so they can review it too?
The bike
And
committee?
I think this is one that should be reviewed by the biking committee and figure out exactly where the best connection points could be, because it's a little weird in this spot. I think it's got some connection points missing.
Yeah,
So I just want to be sure we think about that. Scott, do you know if we absolutely have to have the well house where it's shown?
Where the well house is going?
Is there a reason that it has to go there?
That's where the utility, that's where they're, I'm not gonna tell them where to put their well house.
they bought the land.
Yeah, that's where it's
They
going,
did
yeah.
buy, I mean, I know that they bought the land, but they are a city entity, the same as the Parks Department is. So I'm assuming that there is underground infrastructure in place for it already, but
I don't believe
is there a
so.
reason that the well house has to go there? I guess I feel like it is, since it has the shelter and the restrooms, it becomes the hub. And it's such a constricted area trying to fit in a restroom that has shelters, and we want it near a playground system, and it would be great if it had some off-street parking. It just feels like it's such a tiny area. Does it have to be there? Is there a way to move it a little bit so that we can make it feel a little less constricted?
There is no option to move it, no.
Okay. It's worth asking. What was my other? Sorry, I was looking through my notes too. So yeah, I think those were just my biggest questions. I like the idea of maintaining the connectivity to the south and keeping that one big flexible open space, because I think we do have the schools and the ultimate frisbee teams, and there are probably other users as well that do use that full contiguous area, because I know the other concept did kind of cut it off in the middle. At the same time, one of my favorite parts about McKee is that, we do have the loop system that you can walk, and multiple loops. So, there is some benefit to that as well. And yeah, I'm also not a fan of the locations shown of the playgrounds. I do feel like they need to move into a more central location.
So are you saying by the other activity areas? Is that what you're thinking for the
I
playground?
think I would move them, closer to the other activity areas.
Okay.
And I had one other semi-related question to this. Do you know if your community gardens, have they sold out for the year? Is this another park that could potentially host community gardens within a space?
Yeah, we haven't received a request for community gardens in this area, no.
Okay. I can see it with the future build out of the Crescent Crossing area, just because none of those homes have lots, that could be a driver for people to use community gardens in this particular park.
And we, truthfully, we can, at whatever point, if it's green space, we can rototill it up and then create community gardens, which we've done in other parks. So I guess I would, if there is a request or for community gardens, I think we'd be able to accommodate if there is that desire for them there.
All right, next person to throw their ideas out.
Okay. Sarah, did you have anything you want to add?
No, I agree with the comments on, I don't really love the area of the playground equipment, because it would make more sense to me to have that at the shelter, or closer to the shelter. And I guess the only thing for the lights, I guess I thought that in the survey results, which I'm sorry, I should have looked up, but I thought there wasn't a desire for much light. So that was the only thing for the basketball court that I didn't know maybe if, understand that people want light to have potentially later play, but if it could potentially just be shifted closer to, if it could, I'm sorry, I don't know my directions. If it could go closer to the road and potentially have some street lighting advantage, but otherwise, I didn't think that people wanted a ton of lighting from the survey results within the park, that I didn't know if we wanted to add specific basketball courting lighting, that was something I didn't think we want to pursue.
But
And I
maybe,
loved Anna's feedback about adding more trees. I think those are my only comments.
and then maybe some path lighting, maybe
I
one,
think that,
one,
yeah,
one
like,
path
but
that could,
I just didn't think we wanted the basketball court lighting specifically, that
right.
Yeah, there was a question on the survey about lighting the play field, and that was rejected. But, and this is a little different, but it's still a little bit the same. So, yeah, whether the basketball court, is that all right, Sarah? Are you finished?
Yep, I'm finished.
Okay. When I thought about path lighting, there is so much of the perimeter that's along streets or near streets that you will get some street lighting spill over into the park. But I don't know exactly where that's laid out and if the basketball could go anywhere near that. Otherwise, in a way, in winter after 5 o'clock, it's usually getting pretty cold. So I'm not sure how many people would. But I'm not playing basketball anymore, so it could very well be that it would still be popular. And then also to the lighting, if it was determined that it really was necessary for some reason, the existing path that is there, that goes through the center of the park. If there was really an insistence on lights, which I'm not on the bandwagon for, especially given budget, but you could offer putting it through that strip alone. But again, that's
Because
sort of,
not to interrupt you, Sue, but there is path lighting going north and south from Seminole Glen, coming down to the south. So it, to go east-west from that path to the, would seem to make some
Yeah.
sense, to get some light in the middle of it.
yeah. Now, do those lights, they go off after the park closes? We talked about that, but never really determined it.
For a little bit, for security.
They stay on continuously for all night long for security.
Well, you can time them,
Okay,
so they come on with a photocell and then go off at a certain time.
okay, because the park closes at 10,
Light.
yeah. Okay, so, okay, now I have a long list, and I'll appreciate everybody bearing with me. And a lot of it's been answered already, so I'll just try to make sure that I'm not going over things. The one thing about the playground equipment, and I know that there was enthusiasm in the neighborhood for something more challenging for that older group of kids. They were using the phrase a ninja course or something like that. And so I know that those probably cost more, but if we are creating a space for where these older kids are really gonna wanna come, and am I right to say that's what, age 7 to 12 grouping? Then, I hope we get specific information about not just getting a bid on that, but that we really find some type of equipment that really is what they were asking for in the first place, people who were on the committee. Okay, one of the things that some of the neighbors wanted was, they called it a toddler track, and you could still incorporate something like that if you move the playground, as we've all discussed. It's not really toddlers to my mind, but it's a little bit of a course for kids to ride whatever it is they want to ride, a scooter or some other such device. A bike, a scooter, pull a wagon, push your sibling in a stroller. And Katie, you know, you've got the background, obviously, of your park planning expertise. Is that something that looks like it would fit there? Is that still a popular item to try to include?
I think it would certainly be a unique item to include, and there's a lot to be said for that in this new park.
Yeah. And then my drawback to that is, you know, they're interesting when they're wavy and, you know, undulating. At the same time, then, the park users would have to know there is nobody out there with a snow plow that is going to keep that plowed during the winter. It'd probably be pretty impossible. Maybe not, but that's a drawback to putting something in and the expectation that it's going to be plowed. All right. Yes, and Anna's information about the park node, where there are the existing trees, adding more to that canopy. And an idea that another one of the committee members raised, maybe even more than one, is that schools may do a program that is called fourth grade forest, and it is initiated by the schools, but we could try an outreach with the schools about, on their side of the fence, near that park node, if they create and continue a fourth grade forest program that they're adding to tree canopy on their side. And then what you could do then, I'd like to see that 8-foot tall fence or 6-foot tall fence in that section come down and get softened up with something like, if you had to show a delineation at all of something split rail or something like that. So, because we really want to try to begin to make use of all the space, not just say only this is park, you know, the residents use it more as all of their space, so it'd be nice to get rid of that fence there. The other thing about the park node, on the part of it that fronts Scarlet Drive, and then perpendicular to that is where the park path that comes from Seminole Forest and Lacey Heights goes north and gets all the families coming to school or to the park. There's a crosswalk there. And when the North Stoner Prairie, I was going to say something, Nine Springs neighborhood, when the North Stoner Prairie was being developed, the neighbors in Lacey Heights and Seminole Forest were very adamant about pedestrian safety over Scarlet Drive, and I think the one south of that is Persimmon, but our discussion is Scarlet Drive. I would like to also suggest then that we discourage kids coming to the park and school on Scarlet Drive, which has no sidewalk, that they not cut through that node to get to the park or school. Only because if they're in a hurry or they're late for school, they see their friends and they're walking but haven't yet reached the crosswalk, they're walking, running, riding a bike, and they suddenly veer across traffic because they want a shortcut through the node to get to the rest of the park or the path to go to school, then we can avoid a potential collision by, again, having something like a split rail fence that discourages the shortcuts. Page 2.
I didn't follow that one.
You don't want, okay.
So
If
you're-
you are on Scarlet Drive,
Right,
walking from east to west, before you get to the part where the north-south path crosses Scarlet Drive, there's a crosswalk where the north-south path crosses Scarlet Drive.
Right.
You're walking towards that from east to west. There's no sidewalk. And if you're, you know, a 10-year-old and you're on that north side of the street and you're late for school or you see a friend and you think, I'm going to get there faster by cutting across the park, the node of the park to get to the main park or the path, and there's a car behind you that doesn't know that you are now going to not use the crosswalk that's another 50 feet in front of you you're gonna cut across this little node of a park. I would like there to be a barrier along the north edge of the node of the park, again, something like a split rail, so that anybody coming, any pedestrian or child coming from that direction is forced to walk up to the crosswalk before they cross over and go into the park. Does that make any more sense? I'll come over tomorrow and draw you a picture. Okay. All right. Okay, we're almost there. The softball field is, I would like it to stay. There's no reason to spend money to take it down, and I'm told by some neighbors that people do use it. And as it stands now, MUFA uses almost the entirety of that bottom half of the park because they play right up into close up to the infield and even sometimes onto the infield. So without the basketball court there, MUFA on that bottom half can fit 3 to 4 of their playing fields there. The superimposed images are big. Those are a little big to scale. And my final remark is about the benches and rocks to sit on. I think benches are more inclusive. I know rocks are popular, and I'll sit on a rock for a while, but not for long. So if we are looking at shaving dollars, I just think you're gonna get more use out of benches in various places. And maybe we could just find a place to earmark community gardens before we start placing all other equipment as an idea. And Julia made a remark about, you know, the prairie areas and having more of it because, and we are in a catch-22 because it does cut down on mowing costs, but it's expensive to get started. And Anna's point in her communication to us is the way it's shown with prairie in undulating waves around the edges of the space is very appealing, but in a practical sense, much more difficult to keep invasives from growing into those spaces. So we could think about if there is a wish to still have prairie, can we do it in a block form somewhere where you still have the pollinators, you're not mowing as much, but you're not creating more maintenance by always fighting off invasives coming around all those exposed edges of all those sections. And Katie, I know you've got, and Chris, you know, as a landscape architect, Katie's had her own private prairie at one point in her life, I think, and knows a lot about all of that too. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I was following what Anna was telling us.
Any spot that you could?
Well, there's nothing on that bottom half where MUFA is.
Right.
It might be kind of nice as a feature where that Cornelius comes up and there's that pointed corner in that, like the top left corner of the entire park. And then just laid out in such a way where it's, and there's another advantage there is you've got a blacktop path there and you've got the curbing. So you're not gonna introduce as many invasives on those ends. You're only gonna have, let's say you did make it a block or rectangle, you'd have 2 exposed ends within that top part of the park.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Do we need to have like all the path, the internal path in the park paved with asphalt? Can it be like a natural, you know what I mean? I don't know.
I have to admit, someone asked me that too. There are already many installed paved paths. But the one that's shown on the, kind of cutting through the park on No, concept 2 has a new kind of angular path. And that just, I just don't like that there. And then the other thing, going back to the node, and it relates to paths, so I'm glad you brought that up, is the path that it shows going through the node goes right over the drainage culvert, and it's always boggy there. And that's where I think having Tree Advisory Committee look at that whole section, because paths may interfere with the species of trees that are there. There's a swamp oak there, and if you put paths around it, you may disrupt the water it's accustomed to and what it's the reason it's planted there is because that was a boggy corner. So could we have Tree Advisory also look at the whole park, and then they would focus on that part as well? But the comment I got from someone else is, maybe we've got enough paved path as is, without adding more than what's gonna go around, a toddler track. And then on the two options, there's paved path discussion to have, because, and I think Chris, you mentioned it, or somebody did, that we shouldn't really add another east-west path down at the border of the park, between the park and the school grounds. And actually, the vice principal and I communicated about that during the ad hoc process, and he checked with the gym teacher, and they use a lot of that open space there too, so they may not appreciate it. If we don't have to do it, and an expense is, we're saving an expense, don't do it. But then we still have at the very bottom where that access path comes in between two lots and ends at the school grounds. And your concept 2 shows just that limited connection. And Scott, have we gotten any permission from the school to make that limited connection down there? Not yet.
I want to first determine that that's what we
Yes,
want. Before.
got it, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a path that ends at a fence line between two homes, so if the school will let us just extend that up into the park,
Right.
that'd be nice. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, I'll make mine quick because I want to get out of here, and a lot of my points have been touched on, but I think, right now, even though it's not all the same property owners, that big open lawn space between the park property and the school property is all used as one space. So I think, and that's to everyone's advantage. So putting a path through there eliminates that ability for that to be used as, 6, 7 MUFA fields instead of 3. So I think cut across path, kill it. Don't want that. Also, because there is so much large open space to the south of where the existing path is, I don't necessarily think we need any more or much more up north of that. So to Anna's point about condensing prairie area into, a larger contiguous section, which I agree with entirely, that whole area north of the existing path, I think, is a perfect opportunity for that. And there was a fairly strong demand from the neighborhood for some more calm, serene, contemplative, naturalistic areas. And, frankly, a few little 10-foot wide strips of prairie aren't going to provide that. So if we can provide a more substantial chunk of that up there, I think that's a great spot for it. And it could have potentially, mowed paths through it that aren't paved, but just mowed walking paths, even with little benches and stuff tucked aside, but something more substantial that actually makes an impact. I also agree with Anna about having more trees. I think I agree with everybody about moving the playground closer, like creating sort of a hub of activity. Seems to make sense for a lot of different reasons. The only thing that makes me wonder is, well, if we're moving it, fine. But where it is now, If we reposition where we're having playground equipment, that leaves that little finger on the northeast side of the park kind of without any function. So I just wonder, what are we going to do there?
I think the idea of Sue, that could become, that toddler loop in there with.
No, the toddler loop stays with the playground equipment where we moved it all already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and go ahead, Chris, you have the floor, but that.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just thinking, basically, if we remove what reason for that area to exist, if we remove that, then it's left as kind of a vacuum. So we just need to think of something to do there.
Yeah.
What about an area where you can do meditation or yoga, something like that, with all the trees and the, I don't know.
I think it could be an extension of the more naturalized area. It could become, but I think if it just can't be a patch of lawn with a few trees in it. Otherwise, it's just an area of turf that we'll mow and nobody will ever use, which is what we're trying to get away from. So,
Right.
I think that covers the majority of my thoughts.
Yeah, and Anna, for the, actually the intern, this last year, made a nice tree map that we could bring to our next discussion. And I heard that from another person, we have this requirement for the solitude, and that's part of solitude. We might be able to create something. Get a statue of Buddha in the middle.
Can we put like a gazebo?
A gazebo?
It's gonna cost money, but.
That's, yeah. Put that in a CIP.
Oh, I put it. I don't have any.
Okay, Patrick.
I'll take a turn at this here, trying to follow everybody's sort of individual designs here. I think I want to say, first of all, I don't like to try to move things around. One of the things that I look at on this is I think we've got to accept the givens of this area. The well house, yeah, I agree, and I think we all figure this, the well house and therefore our attached restrooms are in a bad location, but we just have to accept that. Otherwise, we'd be building a freestanding shelter with restrooms. We'd have to do our own water, sewer, connections and all of that, electric and all. So the well house, we just have to build with that. The east-west blacktop path that exists through there, we just have to accept that too. I took a look at Google Maps and yeah, it's right through the middle right there. So it kind of divides a north quarter or whatever that is to the central half down below there. What is labeled Stoner Prairie Park, the northeast section over there that had playground. Yeah, I like this idea. Stick the gazebo over there or something, or fill in more trees or so, because otherwise, yes, it's empty. What do we do with it if we pull the playground out of there? I guess, and then what I'm thinking of here is, yeah, the playground should probably be, okay, look at the northern part, north of that existing blacktop east-west path. So in that section right there, I guess I am looking at maybe the playground should be over to the left-ish part, and the basketball maybe could be over to the right-ish in that upper part. The baseball field I see as existing, and again, I don't like the idea of taking it out. Just make use of it, leave it there. Another given that we should work around. But use that whole southern half right there for the, well, it's labeled flexible open space or the MUFA fields, things like that. Maybe overlapping one of them on the outfield of the baseball field. Maybe there could be 3 of them across right there.
Often there's 4 already.
Oh, okay, so 4 across and overlap them onto the baseball because, I mean, in McGaw, they use the outfield of the baseball fields for a MUFA play area. And yeah, if this stretches down to the south further, yeah, I can see not having another east-west path go across there, and I will stop there.
Can you tell me what the consensus is for the basketball court, north-south?
My idea is to not have it interrupt the MUFA fields in the southern half.
Yeah, exactly.
So that I think goes, needs to be in the north somewhere. In other words,
I would,
here, let's see, not concept one's version, but concept two's version has the basketball in the upper part above the blacktop path, but shifted over to the right.
to the east.
Yes, to the east. And the playground shifted over to the west, to the
east
left
or the west?
instead.
You
Because it's
shifted-
closer to the restrooms.
Yeah, you moved the basketball court east. And we didn't talk about orchards, but that's the other thing that I think we should not pursue here. Anna had some rationale, and I wrote some things, and we can, and I know it's getting late, we can talk about again later, but that was, if there is no orchard, then you have your more room for your basketball over there.
Can I ask you a question? Should we send also this to the tree committee when we talk about trees? Okay.
Yes, please.
Tree advisory, right?
Yeah, tree advisory.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, they'll be the group.
And what I'm thinking here kind of fills in this northern, I'm calling it a quarter area above the blacktop path, with things, and especially leaves the southern half more open for those large recreation fields.
And not to interrupt you, if the concept one, in concept two, I'm looking at that covered shelter structure. So that could be lost in concept two, and then if we ever do get the well in the bathroom, that's where that covered structure could potentially go. So it really,
Are you thinking of the one that's attached to the restrooms?
right.
Okay.
Right.
Say
So
it again, Scott, so I understand, I don't get it.
Well, what I'm saying is that what we could do, because I'm hearing, if I'm looking at concept two, I'm hearing that we're gonna wanna have our activities, where the existing basketball court, and then you've got a phase two covered structure. So that wouldn't be there. That would be, if we ever do get the well or whatever, then we would have that structure attached to the well in concept one. So I'm hearing that we create the activity kind of node, if you would, the activity node is in this area. The big prairie kind of thing through here, and then the playground would be in here. And then, that's what I'm.
It's hard to see where your cursor is pointing.
One of the things, Scott, I wanted to mention is, we have talked about, when you look at the covered shelter structure that you just are referring to, that's shown that it's on a path that I think we've all said we're not gonna add more blacktop. So you can play around with the location of that shelter pretty easily. And maybe that comes a little bit further to the left, and then where the basketball court is, more of the playground fits.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting the idea of what you guys are thinking about, so I think we can, and what I'll do too is I'll ask Rob to review or watch this portion of the park commission meeting, so then he'll be able to gain some comments and some thoughts, and we'll let him kind of come up with what he thinks we were summarized here, and kind of go, and then we come back to the group in June, and then we take some more time and take another look at it, and it's not gonna happen in one or two meetings. It's a process that we're going through, so we'll try to, and then we'll just act off of that.
Scott, you need to send this to the bike committee for discussing all the bike path, connectivity to the bike system.
Yep, and I
To
actually,
the tree committee, so,
well, and I actually did talk to Steve way back when on how we can all connect in.
And the one thing, just in general, there was a difficulty during the planning process of getting everyone to understand that we call this the MUFA area, but they're not there all the time. They're not there very often at all. And to encourage everyone to play there. Because right now we have so much green space that if some of it becomes more of these natural plantings for several reasons, pollinators and reducing mowing in the long run. We want everyone to realize you can fly a kite on that other side of the path too, and all these other things. And there might be some resistance to that idea, but it's a big park, and that would be the best way to use the space, I think. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, yes. It's time well spent. Time well spent. No action on that,
No.
just discussion.
Are you sure you don't want to vote on every individual item?
No.
Okay.
No.
So, item G is the Sunnyside Park Drinking Fountain
Yes,
project.
and this, I wanted to bring back to the group, and I included in your information, what would be involved in this drinking fountain would be electrical. You know, we'd have to run electricity to the well. There would be possibly, we'd have to replace the pressure tank, we'd have to run a water line, pour concrete, and those kinds of things. But I just wanted to reassure the group that the Fitchburg Dog Park advocates are in favor of that, and they're willing to contribute to the project if we do it in 2022. So I wanted to, and I actually did include in your agenda comments from Jake from the Fitchburg Dog Park advocates that reaffirm that, you know, we've had conversations and they feel that this is the best way to proceed in trying to get a drinking fountain at Sunnyside.
Comment?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw a letter from Jake Johnson writing up some more details to me about this. So I'm in agreement. I am a little disappointed that it is not the hand pump because the Dog Park Advocates group, I think it was Rachel on the group, originally proposed a hand pump. And I don't know what the seasonal limitations might be on this. Just to mention, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine and I went walking dogs over in Lake Farms Park, Dane County Park, and way up to the north in there, if you're at all familiar, they have a shelter 1, a shelter 2, and a shelter 3 way to the north in there. Shelter 3 is so far away from everything that there's no electric. It just has a hand pump, and I think this was February. We went walking in there, and I started pumping on the thing, and it was a nice day, and it started pumping water out. So I thought all along the way that a hand pump would be more accessible, and in more months, as long as it's not freezing cold, the water will run and you can get water out of it. And I do question this idea about, Jordan says all this stuff about if it's a hand pump, he has to pull the hand pump out, something like that, and then get a water sample and then maybe flush it out and everything like that. I would suggest, well, this is kind of beyond that, but I'm kind of wondering if Dane County in that park, Lake Farms Park, does the same kind of flushing the well, testing it and everything like that, because this well is so far away from anything. I think they just, use it, and maybe they never test it, I don't know.
But I did hear you agree.
I have to,
Okay.
yeah, I have to agree, yeah,
All
I
right.
have some reservations and everything, and this is a very more expensive than the hand pump and maybe less available use. But if Jake and such have agreed with this, and I reluctantly go along
Would you
with
like to
this.
make the motion, Patrick?
Is it a motion? Is it?
But Julia has a question first.
I have a question. Yes, when you mentioned that the Common Council need to make a budget amendment, how much money we are talking about? The $40,000?
We get contributions from the Fitchburg Dog Park advocates. Right?
Okay, so from which fund is gonna come this money in your budget?
Park Development Fund for a community park.
From the community park.
Yeah, it's a community
Okay,
park, right?
okay.
Right.
What is there a known amount that the dog park group is contributing?
Yeah.
It
How
was
much?
like
Does it say it on here?
it's like 8,500 or something like that.
8,500 they're gonna contribute?
But don't quote me on that. Yeah.
No,
There's something in this. this,
It'll be, well,
email that
and
Jake
really
sent.
what I want to make sure is the park commission is good with it. Because what'll happen now is I'll do a resolution and a referral, and it'll be a budget amendment. and then it'll get referred back to the Park Commission and then to the council for final approval.
Yeah, but the council is the first question there, because it's gonna go to finance and, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And the
whole-
question is, how much money is
Yep.
we are transferring, you know, we are gonna use.
And we're, we're estimating it's gonna be 40,000.
So we are estimating to pay the whole thing right now.
What's that?
So the idea is we are paying the whole thing for now.
No.
No, because he doesn't know how much the other people are gonna.
Dog Park Advocate is
to be
contributing the rest of the funds they have, correct?
They're gonna contribute, I think it was $8,500 that they had. Yeah, and then that was going to wipe out their money.
Yeah, but my concern is how much money is how much is gonna be the budget amendment? Is 40,000 or 40,000 minus?
I'll let Misty decide what that's going to be, because, well, with the understanding that we're gonna get a contribution, so I don't know if the budget amendment would be 40 minus
This is my
that
question, because we should
contribution.
know that, you know, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Misty will guide us on what that should be.
I think that the most important point here is to get this water fountain well operational in 2022 as specified by the Dog Park Advocates Group, because it's been, I don't know how many, maybe, I don't know, it's not 5 years, several years, and the first well was pulled out and abandoned, the second well is just sitting there. This has gone back and forth between hand pump electric. So I think the important thing is get this installed in 2022.
Well, and actually, it was scheduled to be a month earlier than this, but it got cut out, so.
Okay. So Patrick, you're going to make the motion.
Sure, I'll move approval of this,
The Sunnyside Park Drinking Fountain Project.
yes.
A second.
Julia seconding. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, we are on to communications. Scott, take it away.
Yep, just a couple quick things. The tree planting plan, which was approved by finance and the council. And also, too, we're going to have a direct referral, Julia, on Tuesday for raising the seasonal park wages to $17 an hour. So there'll be a budget amendment that'll get directly referred and acted on May 10th. We're having difficulty recruiting the seasonal workers, so we're raising the fee, and hopefully we'll get some more applicants.
Commission?
It's going to be I wanted to let the Park Commission know that that's what I'm working on, but it's going to be a direct referral that's going to be on Tuesday.
It's coming from a commission. It's gonna come from parks, or it's gonna come from finance, or you're gonna send it directly to finance? Okay.
In the works. I just wanted to let the Park Commission aware of it so that they didn't come back to me and say, hey, so I just wanted to let you know, and to expedite it, we did a direct referral, so it won't come back to the Park Commission.
It's getting late, too. Okay, so now you have staff reports, which I studied.
Yep, and actually, as part of the recreation report was their summer guide, which I thought was cool, so
It is very nice.
included that in, yep.
Yeah, so I want to mention about this, because that guide is wonderful, and I think we should print that thing and have it in different places in the city. Are we doing this?
Printing costs money? Yeah, the expense of printing.
But this is what I say, Scott, I understand about the money, but we need to understand how much money more we can do if more people know about all the recreational activities, you know what I mean?
You know, and in fairness, Julia, back in the day when that's what we did is printed copy, but our customers don't do printed copies. They just go online and they register, and that's the way they do it.
Is the link to that guide,
on our
so we
webpage.
can grab it and I can post it in Facebook. We can do it. You know?
On the rec page. Yep, it's a summer rec guide right on the recreational page. There's a link right to it.
Do you have a Facebook? The
Oh, yeah.
recreational, do you have, are you
I'm not the
posting all of that?
Facebook, but the rec department has a Facebook page, right?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
But because that guide is great, so
I know.
thank you for
Yeah,
it.
they do it, and that's what I wanted to share, that they do good work, so,
It's very nice.
yep, yep.
You going to read your director's report to us, Scott? Okay. Future agenda items, we already know a lot of things are coming back, and there'll be more. Announcements, next two meetings, June 2nd and July 7th. Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
We broke
Katie's
the
gonna
clock
second.
on this one. It's 10 o'clock and
Katie seconded it.
What's the time, Patrick?
well, I got 10 and 30 seconds right now.
In favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody.